5 and 10. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good morning. The July 21st, 2026 work session is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Mr. Trent?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Campbell?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Gotta wait for everybody to stand up. Sir? Sir, are you going to stand up for the pledge? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Rendell, can you please speak to the board about the items on the agenda for today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On today's agenda, we have the first public hearing on a couple proposed policy revisions, and then a presentation about alternative programs, behavior, drug diversion, success pathways, a presentation on property disposition, and then a presentation on the preliminary fiscal year 26-27 budget. And then also, at the conclusion of all those presentations, the board will discuss the evaluation tool for the school board attorney.
All right, thank you very much. First on our agenda, we have the first public hearing on policy provisions. We will, in accordance with Florida law, accept speakers, board policy review and rule development on the following policies. PO 6320, procurement and contracting. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to this item? Is there anybody here who wishes to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next up is, oh wait, guys, do you, anybody here want to talk about the public procurement?
No, well, I guess yes, if it's okay. I just want to go ahead and highlight to the public again, because this was an area of contention over limits and amounts that the cabinet and superintendent had for spending authority in school locations. So just to reiterate to everyone, the limits are not what they originally were, but they are a little bit higher to permit some flexibility for our schools to not necessarily need cabinet approval for things that happen on a routine basis. So just want to make sure we note that in case anyone comes back up about it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, to follow up on that, so the only thresholds that were increased was the minimum threshold at $10,000 to require a competitive bids or process. The larger amounts were not increased. Superintendent's authority remains at $50,000.
Which is the lowest in all the areas around us.
Orange County also has 50,000, but
Right.
everybody else has 150 or so.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Sir.
This is a great framework, and I just want to let the board know that my intention is to bring this back to, as you guys know, I'm with the Builders Association. I've had some general contractors express concern to me over how our selection committee is picked. I didn't see anything in this as far as that goes, but I do intend to bring this policy back to them and then get some of their feedback, and if there's anything that they would suggest a change or for your consideration, I'll bring it back at that time.
And I'll reiterate that there has been, you know what I mean, there's an expressed interest by our contractors to look in that general area. So I appreciate you taking that as a spearheaded effort and working in there, because that's your area of expertise, and I appreciate it. Anybody else have anything on the procurement policies?
Mr. Chair.
Sir.
So I just want to remind the board that we added this to RSM's scope. So the internal auditors are looking at our procurement practices, which would include committee makeup and selection. So we'll be getting a report from RSM on that probably within a few weeks.
That's incredible.
Excellent, great.
Do you know Jennifer, Martha, and Nan Love pretty good? And I'll get in touch with them so you can work with them through that process. It's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, hearing no others, next up is the P Policy 7540.08, Artificial Intelligence. Is there anyone here who wishes to address this item? Is there anyone here who wishes to address this item? Hearing none, we're going to close the public speaking, and then we have our questions from the board and discussion. So anybody want to go first? Just so the board knows, I've taken the policy, and because of the interest from various organizations, I've gone through the policy, and I feel pretty good about it. There's a lot of areas that I think that we can address in administrative function, administrative policy. So I'm just going to go through and ask. I think it's Russell Cheatham that's going to answer them. We'll just go through and just say, hey, this. So I'm going to do that at the end, but I want to hear whatever you guys want to do first. So whatever you guys cover, then I'll just cross off my list, and then we'll keep going. So does anybody wish to discuss the policy at all?
I just have a small comment.
Yes, sir.
Or a brief comment on the initial section. I believe it's section A. It just says, it talks about the district administrator being authorized to support the use of artificial intelligence technology when it's consistent with the district's mission, goals, and operational integrity. The only thing I thought we might want to consider adding is and established or recognized industry norms, some kind of language like that. So it's not just their discretion.
Yeah.
I know, and those are ever changing, so I'm not sure how to exactly word that.
Paul, just for personal review, if we were to sit there and say we need to add a little word here, a little word there, does that reset the entire time period, or do we still have the window of time due to the fact that we had to call this at a specialized meeting and everything else?
It'll require another notice go out, and it'll just delay implementation for 28 days.
So what I would say, if I may, is there's going to be, just so everybody understands, my concerns, or not my concerns, but I'm well versed to this. I feel comfortable with this. I think they've done a great job to this point. I think some of the little things we'll get in administrative functions later. So due to the fact that our staff needs to get educated and ready for this ahead of time, if we can, any changes to this actual verbiage, we come back to and we kind of let it run, and then we can come back and do it again. Would that be a good?
Fine with me?
I think my question to Mr. Thomas would be, what would be the purpose, what do you think would be the effect of that beyond what we already have? It's not clear to me how that would
Yeah, well,
substantially
first of all,
change.
it's not, a substantive change. I'm not asking to be, to hold this up either. I agree with Mr. Susan. My thought was just that it would, right now, it's worded in a way that it's basically totally in the district administrator's, realm to be able to decide what happens and what doesn't and so I just thought throwing in something about having established or recognized industry norms might put a little guardrail on the.
You know what we could do? We could, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just looking at the verbiage of that sentence says, the district administrator, who in our case would be, the head of ET, right, is authorized to support. So in other words, if we have the way I read it is when we have the use of AI in our board-approved, district-approved ways, that ET is authorized to support that, to make sure that the structures are in place, that the people are in place, to open the gateways for the approved things. So that's why I read that. Not that they have discretion over, but this particular sentence is about supporting it, as long as it's in line with all of those things.
I think where your concern is, Mr. Thomas, is having some sort of societal guidelines as far as AI, right? So there are a host of organizations that actually utilize societal norms for AI, and they've been formed, right? What I would suggest is we look at that, and I hear where you're saying, because it kind of opens up Pandora's box as far as who's in control and guidelines and stuff. But what I would say is that committee that's being formed, that's under the AI, that we have them look at these, society norms or groups or organizations that are issuing guidelines and recommendations based on society norms. So there's there's a lot of them out there that are in line with the way that we are as a school district and our needs. Maybe that's what we do. But I'll make a dual note that this is something that we come back to. Okay?
Well, I don't think the word you didn't use was societal, it was industry.
Industry. That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
But I mean, ours are going to be
Industry.
tighter than that.
Yep.
So that's why I don't say it.
And in no way is it a reflection on Mr. Cheatham, because I think he's does an amazing
Done a great
job. This
job.
is just trying to set some guardrails. And
Yep.
the landscape for AI is changing every day. So.
Yep. Absolutely.
A couple things I just had on this one, and I wanted to, and I've already disclosed publicly, the AI policy, the AI world makes me extremely uncomfortable. I don't like it, and that's part of my age, and I understand that. That's okay. There are some things about this policy that I like. I think there's a lot of confusion in this policy too, though. Usually policy is pretty clear on guiding, and I'm like, this thing is 14 pages long, and it's a doozy. So I'm like, I feel like when I get to the end of it, I'm going, okay, there's a lot there, and some of this I have questions on. So one of it is the closed AI tools that's mentioned in here, and it looks as though we're going to publish those on the website, correct? I'm just wondering, is this really obtainable for ET to take on this task of vetting literally every single AI platform, and what does that look like for the department?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So a couple of questions. I'll answer yours first. Can you restate it just to make sure
Yeah,
I'm-
so the closed AI tools, we mentioned that they will be vetted through ET and then they're going to be published on our website. Do we currently have a list of closed AI tools that are approved and been vetted through educational technology?
So there are not a bunch of tools that are confirmed that we can use, so it's relatively easy now. The hard part is a lot of our day-to-day digital tools, a lot of those vendors are including AI into their tools.
Right.
So we're going to have to include all of those in our list once this is approved and we have to publish a list. It will be difficult. To go back to Mr. Thomas's question, the changes are happening every day, and every day a new vendor saying that they're including AI in their tools, or they're adding new phases of it. Very hard to chase down. So our policy is basically just saying we're going to follow state and federal guidelines. Kind of those are going to be the industry norms. The problem is the state and federal guidelines keep getting pushed back. We keep being told we're going to get them, but we never receive them. But the goal is to follow all the guidelines that are given to us. The problem is they keep delaying those guidelines.
So that was one of the areas of concern, and I mean, I like the idea of that. This looks as though we're going to be transparent and disclose these things. There's a line on here. I just want to go ahead and I want to say this publicly because I think our employees need to hear it. But it says district employees who use AI technologies are responsible for the content created by the AI tools. So want to make sure that that's very loud and clear to the employees that are using it. You are held responsible. So if something shows up on there that's not been approved, or it could potentially walk you down an aisle of maybe getting in trouble. There is something that I liked.
And that's why some of the tools are blocked.
Yeah.
There's some tools that folks want. They do a good job, but some of the items that they create are out of our control, they're out of the user's control. And again, the employee is going to be responsible for that. So that's why it's blocked, because you can't always control what it creates. So some of the tools that people want, we may still block them because they just do some things that the district can't control.
Okay. Another thing that's on here that I just had a question because I don't think it specifies it, but it's on page 9 of 14. It says, when using AI tool to create instructional materials, assessments, or feedback, employees shall maintain transparency by disclosing the role of AI in these processes. Who are they disclosing that to? So would it be disclosed on the materials, or are we informing our families that it's being used, or who is the disclosure to?
The way I read it, it's on the materials themselves.
Okay.
Almost like if you're referencing a book, you know what I mean? You need to say which book you got it from. When you're using AI, you need to show which AI tool you use.
Okay.
Because different AI tools use different algorithms, and sometimes those algorithms operate very differently.
Okay. I think it would be wise of us to take an approach, and the board may disagree, but I feel this way as a parent who has a student sitting in the classroom. I want to know if the teacher is using AI to create instructional materials, or, I would like to know that from a parent's perspective. I don't know if we're going to disclose that or how a parent would necessarily know that. Just a thought, and I know that's probably getting into the weeds of when you think of 4,500 teachers and different subjects and different whatever. I think it's smart to disclose it. And I know.
Okay. Just thinking it through.
The wheels are spinning, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Probably won't be-
disagree with the premise that, they should share that. I think it's with the intended audience. So if you're a teacher and you're generating a lesson plan for your students, you're going to disclose that I found this or I created this using AI. I don't know that you're necessarily going to send a letter home every time you do that.
Right.
So,
Or maybe just a blanket letter saying, if this is a tool that you're using in your classroom, to say, hey, just parents be aware I am going to use AI.
Yeah, I think it's something that could be done at the beginning of the semester or year when you have any kind of parent communication, syllabus that you send home or anything like that. That, hey, I do use Claude to research things, or ChatGPT.
It probably won't be much longer before almost all instruction material has been influenced by AI at some point.
It is. Well, and I'm listening to all different podcasts on it, and I'm like, it's just, there's so much there, and it's developing every single second. And so when you can plug in a question to an AI model and plug it into 3 or 4 AI models, and you get different answers. And so that becomes very problematic of which one are we using and how is it influencing, and that to me is my concern. So if you're not looking at multiple ones, how do you know if the answer you're getting is the correct one, So
I have, on my personal side, personal business, we have companies that use AI, and they come to the table and they spew facts that are completely not even true because they're outside. I've won cases with president. And we talked about that, the outside access for AI and the internal access for AI, where it's using everything else. So,
Right. Well, we've been getting a lot more parent emails from parents who are using AI, and unfortunately, the AI
Okay.
doesn't always understand when you respond. You've actually given them the answer. Anyway, that's another topic.
In our guidelines, we do tell folks, if you use AI, you need to verify the answer. Don't just take what it gives
Right.
you. Always verify before you move
And
forward
here's
with
the
it.
safeguards for that, is our teachers are still responsible to teach the standards. They're teaching to the standards. So whatever material they create, they're responsible, their students are gonna be responsible for regurgitating the standards, right? That's our safety check. If a teacher develops, and I'll use the world of music, since that's my world, you know, they have standards, they have things that, curriculum that they're teaching, and if their AI exists out there, and I'm sure it does. Hey, create a sight reading example for. It's so time consuming to do that. It's very expensive also to hire someone or to purchase it. Or create a 4-part sight reading example. Here's the parameters. Boom, and I can create a dozen examples that are free on a resource. Like that's. I'm still responsible for teaching the standards, but if I use the tool, so I get the fear, but we've got to remember that whatever gets created, yes, could someone create a lesson that they used AI totally irresponsibly and it rewrites history, but in the end, their kids are, yeah, right, but the teachers are responsible for teaching the standards, right? So that's the safeguard. The accountability is there for that. So I think it is a good idea to put it, and probably when we start developing professional development training, Russell, I think it would probably be good just to share best practices with teachers to say, hey, it's best practice. If you know there's a tool that's very helpful, for you to explain it to your parents so they're not afraid. To explain to your students so that they can see the responsible use. I think honestly, that's one of the reasons why our teachers should share that that's where they're using it, because they want to share the responsible use of AI. Look what I created using this, and now, if it's allowed, right, now I want you to go create your own project where you're going to teach a class of whatever and create a quiz or do whatever, a slideshow, podcast, video. There's so many things that it can do. But ultimately it comes back to the standards, and that's why there's built-in accountability for the misuse when it comes to instructional materials and all of that.
Okay. Anybody else got anything? Good. Thomas, you okay, sir? All right. So, thank you so much. So I just wanted to go through, and I first off, I want to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cheatham, for all the work. I appreciate you, because when we had to pull this thing earlier, it was like a big to-do, because I understand on the side of staff, like we are now going into open schools and kids coming in, and we're passing this like a week to 2 weeks before, you know what I mean, it starts. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And I wanted to say thank you for taking a minute to go through it and to make any changes that were appropriate for some of the things that we did, to bring in those groups inside the community that felt like we needed those groups, obviously, are some that are going to call us when the things are not right, and they're going to say you did this wrong. So getting it done the right way ahead of time is great. I was going to ask you, Mr. Cheatham, if you can tell us, and I just want, because this is such a big deal, I want everybody to understand on his world, it's not like Mr. Cheatham just literally wrote this thing and then threw it down and said, all right, let's go. There were meetings with groups and everybody else. You took in feedback from the community, from people, and can you talk a little bit about that so that we know where this was developed from?
Right, so there's a couple of groups, and I believe even in the meetings that you guys attend, I'm sure AI is a big topic as well, so you can imagine there's input being given. So members of my team are on several Florida, there's committees throughout the state. I'm also a member of FAMOUS, and FAMOUS has a CIO committee that we spend a lot of time talking about this and cybersecurity and several other things, but all wrestling with the same issues. Again, but it goes back to the requirements. We were assuming we were going to get some state requirements or federal requirements. When they didn't come in, we kind of had to pause, because you don't want to get too far in front of those, because you don't want to have a policy that immediately when those state requirements are released, that your policy is not aligned with it. So like you said, there's a lot of pages here, but you still feel like, it's not super clear. That's because we have to leave a little bit of flexibility, because when those other state requirements come through, you don't want to be on the wrong side of those requirements right out of the gate. So we're trying to put some guidelines in place. We're also going to publish a website that will also help with those guidelines. but we desperately need some of these requirements to come out just so that we know that we're on the right side of the law when it comes to what we're doing.
And I think, and when I read that, and that's what part of my questions are going to be as we go through it, is that this gives us the flexibility of creating administrative procedures behind the scenes in an ever-turning environment. So the problem that many people don't understand is that when we go to write our policy, it takes it is 28 days. It's all these other components to it, right? So if all of a sudden we need to change something, this document is incredible because it gives us the opportunity. It does give the broad scope of what we need to do. And we follow state statutes, federal statutes, everything else, but it gives us that flexibility inside of it to where if something changes, if all of a sudden we have an issue, we can flip it on its head immediately rather than having to go back and do policy, rather than having to go do all that stuff. We have a guiding principles, kind of like the Constitution, and then everything else comes underneath it. So thank you for that. You did meet with principals, because there was buzz going on back in, I think it was May or June, early June. You were meeting with principals. There were some, I think even FIT had some representatives in one of them. Can you talk about some of those meetings that you guys, because you did take input from our principals, our staff, and everybody else. That's what I was getting at.
And we even met with the principals at the superintendent summit last week and talked about AI, just to talk about the framework, and because
Yep.
there's a lot of questions naturally. Again, they're concerned about their staff. They want to know that their staff isn't doing anything wrong.
Right.
So basically, we're just, again, trying to give them the guidelines to say, if you're using it, communicate it. If it's something you don't want your students using AI for, you need to communicate it. We just have to be very clear until we have all the guidelines that we need in place. But the biggest part right now is just communicate your expectations.
And
As
I think-
a district, we have to communicate our expectations as well.
And I think in part, this is so new, right? So when we're talking about disciplinary procedures and all this stuff, we're not going to have a teacher that's going to go in the first day, make a mistake, and then we're just going to fry them at the stake. You know what I mean? The idea is that we have some grace here in the beginning when we're kind of transitioning into this, because it's going to be as insane as it is. So I don't think that anybody's got it. I just wanted to make sure that everybody in the community understands when we do this, that this was a statewide review that you had with multiple CIO organizations. You talked about cybersecurity organizations, that you meet with committees throughout the state to develop portions of this policy. And then also locally, because I know there were people from FIT that came over for a meeting. There were principals and staff that we had communications with. So I feel very confident when you bring this forward that all of that has been put into this, and people need to understand that it's not something that like our IT group just threw out there. Even though we would be okay with that, they don't understand the excellence.
And Neola is
of that.
also a part of all that. A lot of this is from Neola as well, and they're collecting this feedback as well. There'll be several districts with a policy very similar to this
Yeah.
as well.
Well, when we make the announcement that we're going to do, this is going to be a pretty big one. Okay. So I got your societal norms. If I can, do you have the policy in front of you?
I do.
Okay, so I was just going to go through so that we can kind of review it. I started putting in some notes just so that I can give some verification to the people. On page 8 of 14, letter 1, it says developing and adopting an EIA tool system. Inside of there, it talks about evaluating data scores, evaluations, all that AI systems. When we talk about forming a committee to review these things, as part of like my recommendation would be that is also on the website of the individuals that we have on that committee. And I would add a school board member Ms. Campbell is awesome at this. But, you know, she decided to leave us because she doesn't care for us as much. So you would actually come on but I would like to have a committee that has one school board member on it at least, so that we have some sort of oversight. And then if we can put together each one of those components as far as who makes up that committee, just for new stuff that comes in, so that we can make sure that we're representing it. You know what I mean? A committee that has maybe a couple of people from the community and the school board member and stuff like that we meet maybe quarterly or once every 6 months to review some of the stuff, just to make sure it's in line. That way it gives, because this is a real touchy subject.
Yeah, and just for clarity, so there isn't an existing committee right now, like the way it's worded, IT curriculum director or a AI committee, because we're still getting our hands around it. We don't know,
I know.
how often these tools are going to come in and how often a committee may need to meet.
Yeah.
It could be a lot, you know, so haven't really put a committee together yet,
No,
because
I-
we don't know how often we'd have to bring that committee in.
That's all in here. I just wanted, that's the reason I like the flexibility of this document, is it allows us to form that committee. And I think it's integral that we have a committee, not only because it's cited, but then I would also say that having a school board member on that and maybe one or two people from the community in the area, kind of like what we do for the audit committee, but we actually have like people, it's not like somebody who just decided to come on that doesn't like AI or something like that. You have to have, informational technology type individuals that are from the community to support. That's all. And we'll work through that. Let me see here. If you go to page 9 of 14, subsection 1, under H1, it says employees may interrogate AI tools to integrate, sorry, AI tools. And well, that's part of it. They are interrogating it into their instruction at their discretion and should clearly define the parameters for AI usage in the classroom by students using district-approved AI applications and tools. These are, so if an employee is inside there and they're using tools, we have it that it's going to be approved by the principal kind of stuff, right? Like the principal will oversee any of those things going on in that classroom.
Correct. They should ask for principal approval before they use the tool.
And then the principal, if they have any questions on that, would call your organization, your department and say, hey guys, here's what I'm hearing. What do you guys think? And we go there.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And then number 2, where it says when using AI to create instructional materials, assessments, feedback, and all that stuff, that also is approved by the principal. And then fed up to the thing, okay? And then it says employee shall not input sensitive, confidential, personal, identifiable, all that stuff in number 3. Now we have the daunting task of explaining all of this to our employees. Are we doing that in small group meetings during the principals breakouts? Are we having bigger ones? How is that? Do you guys have a plan for that yet for the district as far as educating the employees prior to moving into, prior to coming back to school during their pre-conferences and stuff like that?
Again, at the summit, we actually went over this line specifically because it's very important. But this isn't anything new. It's new because we're talking about AI, but our teachers, our principals, they know that we don't release sensitive information.
Yep.
We never have.
Yep.
We're just reiterating when it comes to AI, you still play by the same rules.
Yep.
We still do not release any of this sensitive information. So still kind of going back over it, letting them know nothing changes with AI, but these aren't new rules for
Right.
our folks.
And the intended purpose of that question was not only that, but then also this entire package of making sure that our educators and our staff are fully aware of the implications of it. Those will be given during pre-planning times by the principals prior to school starting, correct? Is that kind of the thought process?
That's the plan. As long
And
as we
that's
can
what
get
you
this,
guys-
as long as we can get this passed and move forward. And we also will have a webpage with guidelines for students, staff, and parents that will go over a lot of this information as well.
Yes, sir. And again, thank you for putting this together. I know it's a daunting task. All right, if you move over to page 10, there's where I just put a real quick note was I wanted to talk real in this area about closed AI systems and open AI systems so that the public understands. When you go to ChatGTP, that's an open AI system that's pulling data from everywhere. And a closed definition, I'm not asking you anything else but the definition. Closed definition means that it's set on a specific database that it pulls from, and we can control closed ones. Is that appropriate definition to go by?
Correct. I say you have more control.
Yes.
Closed AI still has its issues. It's AI, so it's still learning. One of the concerns there is, although closed AI is thought to be safer, the AI tool is learning based on what you put into it. The sentence that we just went over, if someone were accidentally to put in sensitive material, even into that closed AI, now it has that sensitive information.
Yep.
Now you have to figure out how do you fix that tool, because you can't go in and tell AI to unlearn something. It's against the nature of it. So it's closed as long as no one's accidentally putting in bad information into
Right.
that closed system. So those are some of the other barriers and difficulties when
wrestling
it comes
with.
to all of this. It's something can be very good until
Corrupted.
something bad's put in.
And I think that when we spoke before, this was maybe even 6 months ago, you were talking about we try to keep as many of our closed AI systems tight as opposed to utilizing any of the, and it's the societal or outside ones like ChatGTP and stuff like that get everybody in trouble. So we try and, like when we're defining down the line of what we really like to approve, it's those closed versus those open ones.
For sure.
So thank you. All right, moving on. On page 11 of 14, J subsection 1, it talks in here about AI tools being used in all these amazing ways. Like I will tell you, this is going to be incredible for our people. And if you guys, for the staff or for the community to understand, These are for visual impairments, specific learning disabilities, disabilities in reading texts. All of this is going to significantly enhance our teachers to actually help those kids. And yeah, we all have, or we know students with disabilities that have areas in here, and this is going to be great for it. My question.
Just to be noted, we actually already have these tools. I don't know that we're calling them AI, but we've had tools for years now that, I can't remember, it's Snap or there's a, they're talking back there. But there's some program where like they can access it, and if they have a book on the screen, you know, but we just haven't called it AI, but if you think about it, that is what it is.
Right.
You know, spell check is also AI, by the way. It's been around for a really long time.
Yep. And a lot of the stuff that we're doing.
It's just,
is-
it's scarier now. I get that, but like, it's not like it's new. We've had some of these tools in place for a long time.
I think
correct.
what's new is the accessible points, not beyond those, but the accessible points for people to develop lesson plans and pull information. That's where I think the fear comes from. But what I was getting at, and thank you so much, Ms. Campbell, for those comments, I would like to talk about the student services. And in the conversations that we're talking about, there's a lot that is to be developed by administrative procedures, and so that people in the community understand these are our formal document that oversees the majority of what we have, and then we have administrative procedures that we're able to change as the AI moves. In this case, it doesn't say anything about it, and I wanted to say this because people will say sensitive, specific use of AI technologies beyond universal application for students with disabilities is best addressed in each student's individual educational plan. So here's what I would say, and if I could be correct in this, that every IEP is approved by our student services team. So if we're going to use an AI program to visual or to enhance the visual, the hearing, or whatever tool, it will be approved by our AI team for student services. And so what I would say is that we would just want that process specifically laid out in those administrative procedures so that people understand how that comes to be, so that if somebody wants to make a recommendation to utilize those tools or they don't want those in, there's some sort of formal document that says it, that's all. So this is great, no need to change it, but as far as when student services is listening,
I was
wanna
going to
come
say,
up
I'll
here?
touch base with Ms. Dampier to make
You
sure.
don't need to
there's
come up
process.
here, we're just saying we just need to do this in the future, is develop the back end of what this AI policy is saying.
Yes, however, I just wanted to make sure.
Now, here we go, here we go.
When we're talking about approval of every IEP through the student services team, it's a group decision, the
Yep.
IEP process. And that is a team decision that we don't look at every one of those. That's a team's decision. The principal oversees that process in the schools. As far as resources that would be used to support that, we do vet that along with CNI. We're on one accord with any type of supplemental materials that we would use or any type of software program. We all get together for
Yep.
that. Now, that is the approval process through student services.
And that approval process goes through, he will put those on the website. The services, the AI services that you're utilizing in student services will be on your website that we have that
On the
identifies
inventory of
all the AI tools.
On the inventory of tools?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, any tools, yes.
Yep, and so there's a formal process behind the scenes administratively for students that have disabilities, students with disabilities, that if there's an AI tool being used, they'll know
Yes,
about it.
yes.
And then they also can utilize it in a way that they may not. So like I have a daughter who has hearing, right? She just got her
Yes.
IEP. So what ended up happening is that now I'm amazed at this because I want to know what can be done here, right? So that's all. So I just wanted to make sure those procedures were behind. Go ahead.
Well,
Ms.
and
Campbell.
just as a reminder, we've been having this theme of making sure parent awareness. Obviously, in an IEP team, the parent is part of the
part of
approval
the team.
process, so they would be very aware of what's being used.
That's what she said, and that's what we were
Yeah.
on the same page. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you so much, Ms. Dampier.
Thank you.
And I had in here in my notes, what's the plan to educate? You already said that. Got a question. Some of our violations as far as of this policy may result in disciplinary consequences. Students may discipline for violations and up to and including expulsion or staff. It referenced inside of here, I think it was 5,500 in the Student Code of Conduct. Those are things that we can go ahead and change on the other side to match up behind here as we see the things develop. So it gives us this broad stroke of discipline that we're able to change a lot of those foundational pieces underneath it so that they can. So we don't need to clearly define that if a kid does this, this is what's going to happen here. That's done inside the student services and student plan, code of conduct, and other things.
Right, basically it's saying if there's a discipline issue, you follow our typical discipline
Yep.
rules.
That we've had in place in regards to these things. And so I just wanted to kind of go over at the end.
What page are you on?
This is the end. So this is just my notes at the end. Thank you so much, Mr. Cheatham, for putting this stuff together. I appreciate it. What I did want to say is there are so many controls in place for our students, our employees, our district to be able to handle and control it. It's not going to be perfect, just like nothing else is, but you've done a great job as far as overviewing it. The district has the disciplinary procedures to be able to stand on if somebody acts inappropriately. We have an internet site that will identify all of the issues that are up there as far as any of the AI tools, any of those questions that are up there that'll be on that website.
We will do our best to identify.
I understand.
It changes every day with
Listen,
AI.
and
It's-
that when I looked at this whole thing, that was an area that I applaud you for trying to do, but the majority of them will be on there and we'll catch them as they go. There's a committee in place that will be approving and talking about and looking at this entire AI process. And then there are standards that we're guided by both with federal, state standards for teaching, and then on top of that, we have our laws that we have to follow. So all of those, the district has control over the AI that they can utilize. An employee that tries to utilize something that is not approved is blocked on our internet. So if they're trying to utilize an AI program that is not approved, 90% of the time, because I know you guys are trying to get out ahead of it, they're already blocked. So the fear that people are just going to access on our internet, that's just not possible. The discipline that they have in order to, that they have inside the classroom if they act inappropriately with the AI policy, and the discipline that they can exhibit onto or enforce onto the students gives them that opportunity to. And then the committee that they may be able to respond to and say, hey, this is what I'm finding in my classroom. Can you guys address this? There's that avenue for them to do that. And then, of course, we have the standards and the laws and everything else that they follow. Parental control, we have the website that they can go to. They can consult directly with the board. They can consult directly with the committee. And then in the event, we already have an opt-out tool that allows them to opt out of wireless devices and all this other those things.
Correct.
We can't have them opt out of certain already existing state mandated tests and stuff like that that are using AI, but we can utilize it for any of the other AI that may be brought into the classroom. Is that correct?
So we have a technology opt-out. So if you opt out of that, now again, it gets very difficult because a lot of our curriculum, it has
Yep.
a digital component to it.
Yep.
But we've always had a technology opt-out that a parent can use.
And I think that difference right there, because I spent a lot of time looking through that, the difference right there is that when a parent looks at those, they'll be okay by understanding that it's not that they're using AI to try to target their kids. They're using AI to give harder or less hard questions based on a test to get them an evaluation at the end. They're using AI to pull from different areas like that. Not content-based, but actually rigor-based. And I think when you start going that line. So that's all I had. I just wanted to kind of say I'm really excited and proud of what you put together, Mr. Cheatham. I really look forward to some of those administrative procedures behind to bolt onto it. And I apologize about pulling it, but just to give the calm for the community, I really thank you. So thank you so much. Everybody good? Sorry to go through that, you guys, but it's a big deal. Okay. All right, everybody good? Thank you, Mr. Cheatham. Now, we have our first presentation that will be presented by Mr. James Raymer, Chief of Schools. Mr. Raymer, who I would say does such an incredible animated introductions of each one of our large get-togethers and conferences. Yeah, he's the official MC. Yeah. I mean, and he enjoys it. And I was like, is this something that's like a new thing that Dr. Rendell put inside of his personnel folder and said, you got to get better? And I was like, no, I've seen some of his stuff when he was at Merritt Island High School. And I had some parents that said, yeah, no, he was just the same way there. So good job, Mr. Raymer.
Well, good morning, board members. Welcome.
That's the spirit.
There we go.
Good morning to you guys and Superintendent Dr. Rendell, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and for your continued commitment to supporting our alternative programs and sites. Today's presentation, we're going to walk through some potential adjustments that we've been looking at for our alternative programs with the goal of meeting the best needs of our students and schools. It is important that we consider these opportunities as we continue to refine our approach to our alternative education, once again, to provide the best opportunities and environments for our students and schools. So throughout today's presentation, we'll share the rationale for these adjustments, review anticipated impact, and discuss considerations for implementation. And then at the conclusion of the presentation, we will seek board discussion on several key components to help guide our next steps. I do want to welcome with me our Director of Alternative Sites and Programs, Ms. Misty Bland, who will do most of the presenting today. And then we will work through, as I said, the board discussion. So our agenda quickly, as we start the presentation, is going to be some potential adjustments to our alternative program considerations for our kindergarten through third grade students, behavior diversion staffing, staffing recommendations overall for behavior diversion, success pathways staff and recommendations, exclusionary period and stipulation agreement for the 26-27 school year, our parent information, acknowledgement, and graduation information, and then board discussion and questions. I do want to mention before we start that we have made an adjustment already to that will be on the board agenda next week for our K-6 and then 7-12 students, which will be separating them for their supports that they receive in the diversion program. So K-6 and 7-12 will be separated as we work through this program. The number of students in each of those levels was different than we perhaps anticipated, so we have made that adjustment for 26-27. So I want to thank Ms. Bland for joining me today, and I'm going to turn it over to her to start the meat of the presentation.
I don't think you're on. There you go.
No?
Yep, there it is.
Is it on now? Well, I'd like to say thank you to the board chair, board members, and Dr. Rendell for giving me the opportunity to present today. And as Mr. Raymer stated, we are looking for board direction on a few items. And I want to start with that recently in 25-26, the district recently implemented a few alternative programs, which was behavior diversion, drug diversion, and success pathways. Well, while these programs have been successful overall, there still is some challenging aspects of K through 3. It's due to their developmental needs, parental support, and also the credit recovery program in itself of them doing it on their own. So the K through 3 alternative program considerations that we would like to discuss is option 1, that the schools use a diversion as a primary option, so that's the behavior diversion. And if not, then the schools will review with district leadership. That doesn't mean that they won't be able to do that. It's just talking through those procedures. Option 2, a centralized K-3 hub offering transportation to enrolled students. And option 3 is what we currently do, maintain the current K through 3 program structure and operations with a reviewing the possibility of modifying the current exclusionary period. I think it's important to note that Florida Statute 1003-53 dropout prevention does not recognize kindergartners as being able to be in dropout prevention. Doesn't mean that they can't be, it's just they're not recognized. So if they are placed in that program, we're not receiving FTE for those students. So to provide additional context, I wanted to review practices in neighborhood counties. So currently in Seminole County, placement of K through 5, those students receive a max of 9 weeks on their stipulation conduct agreement. Volusia County, placement of K through 3 students, their max is also a 9-week of the stipulation conduct agreement. And Orange County is placement of K2, those students only receive 45 days. So next, I'd like to discuss the staff recommendations for the behavior diversion. So the 25-26 funding was, we were able to hire 10 behavior techs. But at that time, we felt that we only needed 6. So we were going to hire 6, see how that works, and we were able to meet the needs of students and staff. We also hired 2 social workers. But for the 26-27, we're looking to decrease the behavior techs to 4 and increase social workers to 3. And I think it's important to note that we are not taking away any services by making this change, and I will go over that. So the cost is for 2 behavior techs for 25, 26 was approximately $136,000. That's including fringe. The cost of one social worker, $73,000, and the cost reduction is approximately $62,000.
Can I just ask, maybe you're going to get to it, but the why on this one? Because the
Yes.
behavior techs, it seems like we budgeted for 10 and we only used 6. Is it because we couldn't find the staff for the other 4, or is it because you didn't need them?
We absolutely could find the staff. It's just that we did not need it for what we were doing it. So currently, behavior techs go in if we have 10 or more students at a school, because
Right.
their school can handle, students that are, if we don't have 10 or more students in a program. And those students are primarily just taking data on these kids. They sit in the classroom, they're taking the data, and they're presenting that data to the administrators. So those administrators can use that if that student needs placement. I will say, with those 6 behavior techs, there were times that I sent them to schools that did not have 10. Now, I'm sure those schools were very happy.
Yeah.
But we absolutely met their needs with 6 and can meet their needs with 4.
Okay,
If the numbers stay the same.
okay.
So, and the reason for the change is, right now we only have 2 social workers. So the social worker is south and north. We don't have a social worker for central. And the goal for that social worker is to support new peer counseling groups. So the behavior tech takes the data and they meet with the social workers weekly. I require them to meet. They discuss the data, discuss what students are doing. They meet with these students, whether it's individual or in group. With having a new social worker, they'll be able to do this therapeutic lunchtime, which we were currently doing at O'Galley, and the principal had nothing but great things to say about it. So it was successful at O'Galley. I wasn't able to do it more because I just did not have the staff to be able to do that. And with that, they're going to be able to interpret the behavior data, meet more with students, and address the emotional and behavioral needs beyond just, hey, how's it going? You've received a referral. Let's get back on track. The goal of the board was to keep kids in school. And that is what the goals of the social worker is, to talk with those students and make sure that is happening.
So I do want to say that we had supports in the central. We just had
Yes.
2, so we split
Yes.
south and north. So
Yes.
central did receive supports. We just really used Pineda Causeway, 1 social worker north of that, 1 social worker south of that, depending on numbers. And the lunchtime peer groups, we are doing our best to not impact instructional time for our students. So we are looking at times that are going to maximize classroom instruction and minimize disruption. So using an opportunity like lunch is why they're doing the peer groups during that time.
So during lunch, if they have A, B, and C lunch, that social worker would stay the entire time and meet with that group. All the kids are in behavior diversion for A lunch, B lunch, and C lunch. So they really can maximize their time, meet students' needs. And of course, we know that not all students do well in groups. So if that is the case, they will still be meeting kids that need a little bit more love and support. They'll be meeting with them one-on-one as normal. So we're not removing any services. I just want to be clear on that.
Do we, how many times a month do they meet with those kids inside there, like roughly, or even a semester?
They meet twice a week minimum with these kids.
These poor kids are inside and they're giving up their lunch twice a week.
No. Well, so some schools, because it is a principal's decision whether or not those students during that 8-week period.
Yeah.
And it's only during that 8-week period that they're under the stipulation conduct agreement.
Okay.
So if the school chooses not to participate in this, they don't have to.
No,
We're still going to meet with those kids. But yes, I do understand what you're saying. But those kids did commit a spellable offense, and so it is just during those 8 weeks.
I totally understand. I'm on board. I just
I
was
know.
curious. All right, thank you.
So now I'd like to discuss the staffing recommendations for the Success Pathways staff. So currently, we're requesting 1 additional elementary teacher beginning in the school year 26-27. We've had 129 elementary students enrolled in second semester. for a total of 218 for the school year. So each of those students are taking 5 courses. That's 690
Yeah.
courses for one teacher to monitor and make sure we're meeting the needs of these students. We have 45 elementary students that are starting the school year with us in Success Pathways, which is 225 classes that this teacher will start right off the bat, monitoring, making sure they're meeting the needs of these students. So in addition to being the elementary teacher, the student also serves as the testing coordinator for all grade levels. And funding for this position would primarily be covered through the reduction in behavior diversion staffing cost.
So essentially what we're looking at doing is with the cost changes in behavior diversion and keeping the supports with schools and students, we would then take the cost savings and turn that into covering majority of the elementary teacher and Success Pathways. This is a very heavy load for the elementary teacher when you take it into full context of the number of courses that they're monitoring. Once again, it's a different type of monitoring than in front of kids teaching, but it is monitoring and making sure students are progressing. And at the same time, as we go through PM1, 2, and 3 and other testing windows of making sure that testing opportunities are present for students. So an additional elementary teacher to maintain continuity for the services we're providing would be impactful to the Success Pathway staff.
When you're looking for school board approval, are you looking to give us an overview of all this, or do you need it to, as we go right now, is this what you need?
So at the very end, I
gonna
have
review
a
it.
slide for
Okay.
board discussion where we'll go back through
Okay.
K3, we'll go back through staffing, and we'll just take it one at a time. We just want
Sounds
to give
good.
you a general overview to start, and
Yes,
then we'll
sir.
do the discussion.
All right.
And I think it's important to note that the K through 3 students, that this teacher also has to meet one-on-one with these students, get them set up, go through it, make sure they understand the curriculum. They're also getting online with these students multiple times a day, face-to-face, to make sure that they're able to, for us to be able to meet their needs and to meet their IEP goals.
I taught 38 kids in an after-school, like, adult ed program. Absolute nightmare. Because they had every level, every science class, math class, everything else. I wholeheartedly understand where you're coming from.
So on this slide, we're presenting the proposed exclusionary period for the 26-27 school year for students that commit an expellable offense. So the goal is to simplify for less errors and confusion. The minimum time is 10 weeks and the max is 17 weeks unless it's a 365 or a felony. And it's important to note that the incident date begins and ends at a 9-week period. So you can see the expellable incidents occurring on or before October 13th. They're going to be under the stipulation conduct agreement until January 8th. After October 13th, it's October 13th through January 8th, which is again the end of the 9 weeks. It will end at the end, the exclusionary period, will end at the third 9 weeks, which is March 16th. And as you can see, if you look down at the end, you'll see that felonies, no matter when they get in trouble, their end of their stipulation conduct agreement is at the end of the school year unless they no longer have a felony or they're off felony probation.
So the more we put in here, just for reference, the more opportunity schools have to misinterpret or potentially make an error as we have different lengths of exclusionary periods, I should say, or add different options here. So essentially, the easiest way to look at this is if you commit an expellable offense in the first 9 weeks, you're out the remainder of the first 9 weeks and the second 9 weeks. And if you do it in the second 9 weeks, the remainder of the second 9 weeks and the third 9 weeks. So as Ms. Bland said, the minimum that a student would be placed in either a diversion program or Success Pathways would be roughly 10 weeks, and the maximum would be that they committed it the first day of the 9 weeks, so 17 or 18 weeks, which is a pretty lengthy window when you look at approximately 2 to 4 months is really what those weeks play out to if we're working on 4 weeks per month. So about 2 to 4 months overall and 10 to 17 weeks.
This is specifically for Success Pathways, correct?
So it's for all of our programs, but the diversion programs have that 8-week built-in program. And then once they finish that program, they are then able, with principal discretion, to continue or start participation. They do remain on the stipulation agreement through the duration of this time. So for example, if they successfully complete all of their counseling, but then commit multiple referrals while they're in this time frame, we could still move forward with an expellable option. So this is for all of the programs, but it just looks a little different depending on the program.
So in the past, if a student committed certain stipulation violations, of course, they were placed up for an expulsion. But most of the time, those expulsion times were just a few weeks because the drug diversion for the drug screening is at the very end. So if the kid is positive for drugs, they're placed up for expulsion and they may just be out a week. The same thing for lack of attendance, students will go and then they won't go, and then they're placed up and they're only expelled for a couple of weeks. So some of the changes that we discussed making was, well, currently right now, 2 level 1s or 2 discipline infractions or 1 level 1, you're moved to Success Pathways and you get an additional 9 weeks. So a student commits the same offense that result in drug diversion. So if they get in a fight, they get in a fight again, those students are going to Success Pathways and getting an additional 9 weeks. If the student's not attending or they're not engaged while they're there, those students are also going to go to Success Pathways, get an additional 9 weeks, and for a positive drug screen, they will also be moved and get an additional 9 weeks.
So this will avoid the concerns that were present during 25-26, where, for example, a student maybe got into an altercation with another student, was placed in behavior diversion, and they made it all the way until the second to last week before they were going to be off of the exclusionary period, and then they got in another altercation. Our 25-26 process was that student would then be placed up for expulsion, but only for the duration of the stipulation agreement, which would be those remaining 2 weeks. So what this would do is move them from behavior diversion for another 9 weeks into Success Pathways. And then if they successfully complete Success Pathways, they would be reintegrated back into the school. If they did not successfully complete it, then we would move towards expulsion. So we talked about this when we first moved in this program, was the moving of buckets, I believe was the terminology. And we are looking at just simplifying this for schools and simplifying the process, where if they're in behavior diversion and they meet any criteria to be expelled, they will have 9 weeks added and go to Success Pathways. And I don't want to say any criteria because there are certain things that would move straight to expulsion. But they would be able to move from behavior diversion to Success Pathways, but we would extend the 9 weeks, thus avoiding the late end infraction for the stipulation agreement. And then they would successfully complete Success Pathways and come back into the school. I also want to say that we do have the heightened stipulation agreement. We do have the bans of K6 and 712, where you can only go into the programs a certain amount of time, so they can't continue to just be in the programs. So the exclusionary period, while I understand we're talking about potentially making some changes there, we do have some heightened other aspects in place that will continue to guide behavior. And once again, the goal is to modify the behavior so that the student comes back a better version of themselves and get the appropriate support. So we do have other backside components of the programs where the behavior expectations would be in place. And if students exhaust their options in either Success Pathways or behavior diversion, those are no longer an options, and we would go straight to expulsion based on the number of times they were in a program.
So starting the 26-27 school year, I'm excited to announce that we're going to have a parent information and acknowledgement form. So there was some confusion when a student starts, how to pick up their computer, even though information was given to them. This way, guardians are going to review it, sign it. They're going to receive a copy during that meeting. So if a student is getting behavior diversion or drug diversion, they're going to get the program requirements, when to meet, where to meet, when they start, what their expectations are. For Success Pathways, they're going to get the program requirements, their Edmentum log-on, how to come get their computer, which will be immediately after they leave the meeting, what are their engagements, expectations, and the campus requirement that they're not allowed to be on another campus while they're under this stipulation conduct agreement.
So I believe I spoke with most of you throughout 25, 26 of a parent reaching out and saying, I didn't know, we weren't aware that we had to go at this time to this place or when it started. So this should alleviate all of those concerns as it immediately gives them the framework that was more of a discussion of the expectations. This is putting it down on paper so that the parents have it with them and we can say this is all the aspects of the program that you really need to have when you leave this meeting to successfully complete the requirements.
I'm assuming also that these changes are going to be trained, if they haven't already been, to our administrators, because we also had some circumstances of parents
100%.
coming to us saying,
Yep.
the person at the school said, I don't know anything about this, and I don't ever want that to be the case. So we want to make sure that if they have this in place, or they have a checklist, they're running through what they're supposed to tell the parent before they walk out the door. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so we did consistently train in 25, 26 and
I know you did. I know you did.
pertinent information. At times, sometimes it is lost in translation. So as Mr. Cheatham referenced, we did present some of this information, if not most of this, at the summit last week, where we informed all of our principals and leadership team what we are looking at, what some of the changes may be with the acknowledgement form, et cetera. And then once we have board discussion and direction, we will then follow up with all of our schools with finality to what the programs look like with the code of conduct and everything that's already in place with the expulsion guide and everything that schools have at their fingertips also.
So to ensure consistency, commencement eligibility requirements will be placed in the stipulation conduct agreement as well as the parent acknowledgement form. So as you can see, if a student's in success pathways, they cannot participate in the commencement at their school because they're under success pathways. And until their stipulation conduct agreement is over, they can't attend because they're not allowed to be on another campus. So behavior diversion, graduating seniors must begin behavior diversion on or before March 13th to be eligible to take part in their their school's commencement ceremony. Drug diversion, graduating seniors must begin their first behavior diversion session on or before, March 18th to be eligible to take place in their school's commencement ceremony. I do realize that there is a date difference, but the reason for that is because behavior diversion and drug diversion is on a different day, and I wanted to give students the last possible date to be able to walk with their class because we know how important that is.
Yeah.
But because spring break is during this time frame, that's why the date is different.
We ran into this a little bit at the end of the year where schools, the guidance was the programs take approximately 8 weeks, but there was no definitive date where if you do this before or after, like this is the outcome. So this is a great talking point for our high school principals to inform their seniors that after this date, there is no other option here. Like we cannot complete the program successfully in order for you to walk. So you know that if you create or commit an expellable offense and are placed in either of these programs after these dates, that you will not be walking at the ceremony. It's a good talking point during the meeting with the parents. But we did run into this a couple times at the end of last year and had to make some what I think were high quality informed decisions of students walking or not participating. But this just puts it down on paper that this is what the date is.
It's usually the time when they start getting a little squirrely too. And so they start doing dumb things.
Can I just make one suggestion on this slide, just to make it easier for people that are watching this and the public? Success pathways, can you write like in parentheses off campus? Behavior diversion on campus. I think there's some confusion there with all of that, so that might just help them so they understand this means you're still on campus, this means you're not on campus kind of thing.
It
Yeah,
does,
100%.
it does state that in the parent acknowledgement form.
Okay.
And it does state that in the stipulation conduct agreement.
I'm just saying before this goes up to the public, I think
Sure.
it might help them understand
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, so we'll make some adjustments and provide Lena with any adjusted documentation so that she can post the most up-to-date, appropriate
Thank you.
presentation.
Sorry.
All right.
And so that takes us through our potential adjustments and the updates that we wanted to provide, some of which was just reaffirming the updates that we'll be doing, and a couple of those discussion points were ones that we would like to open for a collaborative opportunity to have board direction on what you would like to see in the program. So the first discussion point would be our K through 3 students and our alternative program considerations. So we had 3 options, and those options were that we looked at K through 3 students in schools primarily using a diversion option, which would keep the student on the campus so they can provide supports, as opposed to success pathways. Option 2 was having a centralized hub here in Brevard, where we would have transportation to and from the school for our K-3 students, so they got face-to-face. It would be very similar to the brick and mortar side of the house, but only for our K-3 students. And then the last option was that we continue with the adjustments that we've made in our programs and for success pathways, but we reduce potentially the exclusionary period for just K through 3 students so that they're not out for up to 17 weeks. It would be something similar to some of the counties that surround us, and then obviously any other option that you may want to discuss.
So if you guys want to, we can go by each person and ask questions, if that's how you guys want to do it. Anybody, you want to go first,
is
Mr. Trent?
it,
We usually don't give anyone a chance to go first, so I figured I'd give it to them.
Is it something you want direction on the K-3 thing first before we go into all of our, notes?
Oh, did you have some general comments you wanted to share?
Yes, I'm sure we all do know.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
do
but
that.
do you want the direction on the K-3, just like our option 1, option 2, option 3?
Yeah, we can go general comments, or we can go back through
No.
the options. So it's up to you guys of which you believe is most efficient for your purposes.
Okay.
Mr. Trent, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. On the K-3, I like the option 3 down there, where we're, in the current structure, and the other 2 just did not, it was too handcuffing, for the schools, and I think that principals were just starting to get comfortable with the programs in general. But we'll see what everybody else says. But obviously, thank you guys. I mean, this is not just something you just put together. We knew, and again, to the public, we had our one-on-ones, and we went through all this. We had lots of discussion, so you kind of know how some of us feel, and we realized how much work you guys put into this. Early on, when we even talked about the 10 behavior techs, that was just a suggestion, right? And we said, let's see how this is what we can afford, because we were saving so much from when we closed down the ALCs. And then I remember you saying, hey, we're going to stop at 6. I think we got it covered. And then we're just going to ask you as the professionals, you, your staff, and your teachers, to come back and give us some feedback. So I really am impressed with the altering of the staff. As a former, and I can go down the line, classroom teacher, I taught credit recovery, ALCs, I was in there, and then the testing coordinator. So when we talk about the duties that elementary school teacher had for the couple hundred students, and being the testing coordinator on top of that, that's amazing. Yes, we need another one. I applaud whoever tried that last year, so we need that. The extra social worker, absolutely. But again, it's us giving you guys that ability. I always say leadership is everything, and you guys really showed us throughout the year that it wasn't your way or the highway. You listened to parents that were confused on things. You adjusted, and we can see what you've done. I'm really excited about the program in the future, and you know what? I'm extremely excited about the kids getting the students getting the services and the help that they need, but I'm also equally excited about the students that are going to be left in that classroom, that they're not going to be dealing with distractions, and that learning can continue. So I think that helped in some of the data that we saw, and some help for our teachers that they have some alternatives. And it isn't that our K-3 kids are suddenly in this different group and they're acting a different way. They were acting like this, for years. We just didn't have anything for them. So again, thank you to the board, Dr. Rendell, and having leaders like you two to be able to make programs and tweak the programs to best serve our students and parents. So I think that's about all I have on that. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Thomas, did you have any comments?
Yes.
I'm trying to just give them the opportunity ahead of you.
So regarding the three options, I just had a quick question. On option 3, and I think that's where Seminole and Volusia, kind of that category they fall into. What is your rationale between going from K3 versus K5? Seminole does K5, K through 5, and Volusia does K through 3. I was just curious why you were selecting K through 3.
Yeah, so we look at K3 for some early literacy opportunities there. We thought about extending to K5, to be honest, and we were going to break there because sixth grade in most other districts is the middle school. So the highest we were going to go was K5. But we settled on K3 through conversations and what are the needs of students in kindergarten through third grade versus what those needs might be in fourth, fifth, and above. So we could consider going to K5, but we really looked at the needs of the students and supports that might have to be in place, the early literacy aspect, the really foundational skills that they need in order to be successful inside of our schools, and that we build those at that K3 level, pre-K to 3 level, a lot of the time. So we were looking at that as the cutoff age group where we were going to focus our attention, but we obviously would go up to fifth grade. We would not recommend going any higher than fifth grade, as sixth grade is middle school in most other districts, obviously elementary in ours. So it would be a K2, K3, or K5 cutoff.
Well, as far as those three options, my selection would be option 3 based on the information that you guys have provided us. And I would not be opposed to going through K5 or at least discussing it, but that would be certainly open to that discussion if you guys think it's best.
All right, Ms. Campbell.
First of all, thank you. I'll keep my general comments brief, but main question that I want to know, and I think the board wants to know when you guys come back to us with some of our new programs, is did it work? And that's a multi-layered conversation. I just have to say I appreciate that you didn't wait for us to get to the whole, to get the whole year finished with before you made some adjustments. You made some adjustments as you saw them, and then came back to us with things that we need to make. But I appreciate that. So it sounds like it is working, and it's definitely accomplishing the goals, which was not just saving money, right? It was like keeping kids where they needed to be so they could find success. And if they choose not to take advantage of that opportunity, then they're gonna be out. But we're giving them another shot, and with the restrictions. On these options, number one, I agree with Mr. Trent. The handcuffing. I know you said it doesn't require final approval, but that kind of it has shadows of years past, right, where people at the school didn't feel like they had the authority, knowing their situation too. And every school's staffing is different as well. A larger school has more people, can maybe handle it better than a small school. Option 2 seems like we're going backwards because one of the problems with the ALCs is the excessive transportation time frame and the behavior issues that happened on the buses. And we're talking about hiring a whole lot more staff. And I know you didn't put a price tag on that, but it's pretty hefty, not just in resources, but also just in the burden of that transportation. Our ALC assistant principals were hopping on the bus frequently if there wasn't an aide, and it just caused all kinds of problems. And so I don't see that as an option. I think number 3 is good. I was confused because like 9 weeks, 45 days. Wait, isn't that the same thing? So the difference is, I'm assuming, is the grade bands. I think I'm going to go along with your recommendation of K3, knowing that you guys are reviewing. I know when we had the ALCs, we hardly ever had anything below. I know it's increased through the years incrementally, but we hardly had anything lower than 4th grade. Ms. Leanne, we occasionally have a kindergartner. Are our numbers going up? Are continuing to go up? Or what are we talking about across the district?
Well, in the past, elementary students, I don't want to say they were not allowed to attend, but they put other things in place in school instead of putting them at the alternative center. So the last couple of years, the students that were put there for elementary were 4th, 5th, and 6th. Okay. So they were doing other things with K through 3.
And occasionally we'd have a second grader, some of the,
Very few.
Now that we've created options for schools,
Correct.
whereas before we might have taken those options away. from a
Correct.
school for a student who really needed to be in some kind of diversion program or off campus. Okay, that makes sense. I agree with the K through 3. I think this 9 weeks makes more sense for a lot of reasons, especially. And I don't know if this is a separate conversation with the exclusionary period, but one of the reasons why we didn't send kids back from the ALCs in the middle of a quarter was just for academic purposes, because if you just picked 12 weeks from whatever the date of the offense was, and you're coming back in the middle of the quarter, you're totally screwing up grades and their academic progress. But elementary doesn't necessarily run so much on a quarter by quarter. Yes, we give grades above kindergarten, but it's just this, is not broken down so much by semester learning, I feel like, in the elementaries. And so it makes sense to allow theirs to be this total of 9 weeks or 45 days, whichever we want to word it. So I'm good with option 3, K3, and letting you guys have that flexibility to continue to monitor that, to see what changes may be needed in the future.
Yeah, I do want to say we understood the parameters and the backside of option 1, 2, and 3. So I do appreciate you saying that. We just wanted to make sure that we put everything out that we could look at for our youngest students and the supports that they need. Also want to say that there are districts across Florida where on a Tuesday a student could be placed back into their homeschool. So when we say 45 days, that could be a random Tuesday is the 45th day and they're back into their site. When we say max of 9 weeks, some districts operate where if it happens in the second 9 weeks, right, what would be considered that they're just out until the end of that 9-week period and then they return. So there are some districts that do, as you said, a 30, 45, 60 day, and that doesn't meet a grading period or a change in the grading period. It could just be the 4th week of the second 9 weeks, and that's the 46th day, and the student goes back on that day. So we were trying to maintain, even though elementary and secondary we could separate a little bit, we were trying to maintain the continuity of a grading period.
Gotcha.
Can I ask a quick question? Just to clarify, if somebody were in the 8th week of a grading period and they committed an offense, they would only be out a week versus somebody that committed the offense? Okay, that's what I want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm up next. All right. What I would love to see, I mean, because I understand both sides of this, right? Because we're talking about our littlest learners that are in the school. And so the concern there is if we're sending them out of the school and they're not being educated at all, I mean, hopefully they're following the success pathways online and going through what they're supposed to be doing there. But we also recognize that there's different home scenarios that may prevent that from happening. So I understand like the heart behind why we're looking at this. I will also say I've been in classrooms, and I'm sure everybody here's probably walked into these ones where you've seen one student that can disrupt the entire learning for the entire class. And so that's the reason behind needing this, as difficult of a decision as that is. I still feel like we should have in-school suspension. It should be ISS, should exist in every single one of our schools. Like I've said that since day one. I think sometimes being sent outside of the schoolhouse to some kids, especially in the secondary world, almost seems like it's not a punishment, right? Right. It's a little more freedom. I can sleep in and do my work when I want, all those kinds of things. So for our elementaries, I mean, we're looking at our occupancy and how many spaces we have. Now, I realize this also a lot of times comes down to a teaching unit, right? Do we have someone that can maintain the class? Is that a possibility as an option 4 of like, hey, we would implement success pathways and we would implement them in-house in the school. They are just separated from, they're not gonna have the same freedom to move around and do the fun things that they get to do in a traditional school setting, but it's another option. What I don't see on this is of the 129 students that were enrolled, how many of those were K3 versus 4th, 5th, and 6th? So that might be helpful to know.
So I don't have all that data for you, but what I do have is for the 45 kids going back, we have approximately 16 K through 3, and we had about 15 to 17 kindergartners, because we did have 17, and I believe 2 went back because it's a manifestation of their disability.
Okay.
That's been our numbers, and it looks about, we've had about 50, I can get the exact number, but about 50 K through 3 students.
Okay, and then it would
Out of
also be
that
helpful to
number.
know, do we see a concentration at specific schools that we recognize, okay, there's a lot at this specific school. Do we need to set them up with a different possible option that works just based on what's happening there. Because I think the approach of saying, hey, we're going to give everybody the same things doesn't always work. Everybody doesn't need the same things. So it might be worth looking at. For right now, with only having options 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to stick with 3. But I'm just saying as we discuss this and it continues, I think it's worth looking at all of those things. In-school suspension is a good tool because they don't get the same fun stuff, but they're still in-house and we're still able to make sure that they're receiving the education that obviously we don't want them to fall behind. So that's where I land on this. So if there could be an option 4, then I would like that. But if not, for now, I'll pick option 3.
It could be, obviously, the funding side for in-school suspension at schools would be a pause and maybe a point of concern, just as we would most likely be adding additional staff to our elementary schools, pending on, maybe not every school, right?
Right.
It would be a fraction of the schools or a portion of the schools. But we would have to look at that funding side of the house too in order to make sure that happens. When it comes to K through 3, when we look at the data and focus of students enrolled at 1018, as we roll through the first return date and the second return date, you're looking at the 8 to 12 students at a time. And then as semester comes, maybe that drops down as students go back, and then it starts picking up as that semester picks up, and then at the end of the year, obviously, it drops down. So, it's not the majority of our students, I should say, but at the same time, it is our most, I'll say, fragile early learners, and for supports and needs and literacy and foundational skills for math and other subjects. So we can definitely look at a price point if we were to put schools in, decide who may need ISS versus who would be able to suffice without ISS, and then look at what that staffing side would be.
Or could this be like a TOA position that potentially floats?
Even before, since we're going to talk about ISS, I mean, ISS could be in an elementary school as a precursor to that. I mean, they can still have an ISS that has very little to do with this. And some schools may already be doing this, but I envision at the elementary school, maybe the assistant principals their office is a classroom with their desk, and that's
like they don't have anything else to do.
Oh, they'll love that.
well, it's already happened. It's already being
does at
discussed,
some
and it is going to happen. And because the principals put a lot of the discipline on the assistant principals already.
Yeah.
So it's a lot better than walking into an elementary school and little Johnny or Sally is sitting next to the secretary's desk, eating lunch, and that's their ISS. So it is. Some building principals are already discussing this and making that. So we don't necessarily need an entirely new position that would cost money. And if that's the case, you have that, then they're probably going to this if they're there for an extended period of time. But if it's for a day or two based on a referral or just an action in class, we can handle that inside our schools without.
Yeah, there's variations that we could look at along with effectiveness of those variations. So we can take a look at different iterations of what this could look like. And I know some schools are moving forward with different opportunities, whether they have some staffing through a PAR or maybe a grant or additional funding source, where they have somebody that is able to successfully run an in-school suspension. But that's really the key to it, to be honest.
Right.
It isn't about having it, it's about having the right person in the room to run it effectively. Because even at the high school, when we used to have more schools with ISS, a lot of times it was a support staff member, and it wasn't a place where students didn't want to go per se. So it wasn't much of a deterrent. So you really need a strong person in that room that is going to help modify student behavior and really hold parameters and expectations. But we can look at different variations of what this could be. As I said, there's, of the elementary schools, there is a group of them that would not necessarily need this set position based on the behavior for their K-3 students on years prior. So we would break down and really come to a core group of schools where maybe this would be more impactful.
Yeah.
I just want to bring us back because I hear you, and the whole point of doing exclusions, expulsions in the way that we've changed to doing them was to keep more kids on campus, keep the learning going, but provide options, right? And the options not being drive on a bus for really, really far away and be with a bunch of other kids who may not be behaving well either, all that stuff. But when we're talking about if the number was roughly 50 for the entire school year for K through 3, we're talking about an average of less than one student per elementary school that they're having to deal with. And we're also talking about students who, if they're in this situation, were at a level 4 or level 5, multiple, either offended the same thing twice, because they don't get diversion if they're, whatever. They're off campus for a reason. They, battery on an employee, they had a weapon, they had drugs, whatever. We're talking about some serious infractions, which we're pulling it down, right? But we have to remember that keeping every kid on campus is, I don't think it's going to be the best for our schools to avoid the thing that you're talking about, especially. But also, I also have trust in our staff in this area that we have had students, I'm sure, that the families are dealing with major hardships, and that's one of the reasons why we have social workers as part of this, because if the family has a major hardship and they're in a situation of, it's a kindergartner who you've now said can't come on campus, and we don't have a computer, and we don't have internet, and we don't have somebody to watch them, the social worker is there to help them work out the solutions, and we've got the technology, and I'm sure we've got hotspots, I'm sure, that we're offering if needed, and if in case the camera's not on them, they're shaking their heads, yes, nodding their heads, yes, and getting the support so that we can make sure they can, this is workable. We're not leaving families without resources to, to fend for themselves. So I just, kind of weighing those things and thinking, I still like option 3 and not the idea of an option 4, just for those reasons.
Well, maybe just a cat, like an asterisk, like this is another, and what I'm thinking of, and I'm just going to give you like an example. So say you have a kindergartner or a first grader who ends up on Success Pathways, so they're out of the school. Now you have a family who potentially can't work because they need to be at home. They can't leave a kindergartner or a first grader by themselves. So it's a ripple effect that could really impact. And so that's why I'm saying, like, I understand there are times when another alternative needs to exist. And I'm not saying, and by no means, I'm very hard when it comes to discipline and behaviors and disrupting the classrooms. I don't, I think whenever we have these conversations, I always feel like I'm the mean parent, quote unquote, up here, because I tend to lean more towards that. But I understand when you're talking about our youngest learners and how important that is on those fundamental first couple of years, like, okay, this, it's hard to make a policy that's going to fit every single person. And that's the reality of it, right? And so that's what we're trying to do. We're fixing, trying to find something that fits everyone. Well, that's not really possible. So that's why I said I land on 3, but I think if we see a hot pocket of, hey, we see an elementary school that has a bunch of them, like that, we maybe need to explore another option. Because we don't want an elementary school that's going to have kindergarten through 3rd, have 20 of those kids that are being on Success Pathways, and then they can't even complete Success Pathways because they don't have what they need at home or support. So that's what I'm saying. I'm like, there may be a time that you need to come back and have some flexibility with that case-by-case scenario based on what's going on in certain schools.
So if I may, and thank you so much for the conversation. Mr. Thomas, you feel like you had enough time to talk on
Yeah,
that?
my only other comment wasn't about these 3 options. It was just.
I know, I have more comments too.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm sorry. No,
I just wanted to commend you guys because I think all these changes that you made in these policies are common sense and adds consistency. And so I just support all the work that you've done and appreciate it.
So my first comment was the phenomenal job that you guys have put together. When we sit down and we have these high graduation rates, when we have all of these things, it's because of these decisions that you guys are working on behind the scenes. So we as a board run around and we're like, yeah, we have the highest graduation rates. It's your work inside that space that's been doing phenomenal. And the theory and the basic thesis behind like these, an idea about having the students closer to that school was something that I was not a big fan of, but I've become a fan of, Dr. Rendell, from your guidance and a lot of your guys' work. I will say that I'm option 3, just like everybody else. But what I would like to do, because I think Mr. Trent said it and Ms. Campbell feels it and everybody else, I would like a true evaluation of what ISS could cost, look at, and everything else for our schools. For many years, we've had pockets of places that perform it, places who don't. I would like to try to put together something like Mr. Trent said, to give a framework that if they do want to, here's some of their options, here's what they do, that kind of stuff. And they're free to do it right now. from what I understand. But like where you tapped on was community groups, grants, stuff like that to work with these students. I have a feeling there's some out there that they can access. Also, one thing that always, and I was going to ask for clarification, and maybe now is not the time to ask it, but in the ISS, do you always have to have a certain staffer to run it? Or can you have a retired teacher? Can you have, like, and I know volunteers are not it, but where is the scope for who can run that? Does it have to be an instructor in IA or something like that? Or can it be somebody that's on a grant that is there, like with no teaching certificate and stuff like that? I mean, I don't know. I was just trying to figure out what that is.
So we could investigate options such as that, which would be a cost-cutting measure. Typically, it is an instructional assistant, parapro, or an instructional staff member. We also do run into some concerns with our students with disabilities. If they're in ISS, we need to provide the supports through the IEP, and I know that Ms. Dampier and her team would have looked into ISS and what this could look like and the supports that would need to be in place. So we can investigate outside organizations or staff if we deem that that was appropriate. But for the most part, all of our schools would be using a paraprofessional right now or an instructional staff member. Once again, the person in the room is a really big predictor of the success of that program, as opposed to just having the program. Sometimes it's a name only, and then students, volunteer, right, to go, or it's not a place where they have to report to for the day or 2 days and are disappointed that they have to do that. So the person in the room is a big indicator of that. And as Mr. Susan, you just said, grad rate, right? Our K1, 2, 3 students, right, in due time become our sophomores, juniors, seniors, grad rates, proficiency, learning gains, everything that goes into our district grade. And also as we look at the landscape that we're currently in with enrollment and options for families, making sure that we do stay connected to all of our students and especially our early learners so that they stay within BPS for the pre-K-12 continuum. So we can definitely, Misty and I have taken some notes, so we will investigate different parameters and potential options for ISS just so that you have something to refer back to and can look at for further discussion in the future.
I think what it is and what Mr. Trent was saying, and we caught it, is he made a suggestion that's already happening inside of our schools. It's being recommended. I've had principals through the years say, I wish I could do ISS, I just don't have the staff. But I think that what Ms. Wright was stating, Ms. Wright, would you like to lead the thing on this, just to come back to it and kind of give an explanation?
Lead the thing on this, okay.
Yeah, it's just that way we know when it comes back, there's somebody that's working in that space.
No, I think we need a little more information on, what's that K3 success pathways, like where is that at? Where are they? Is there a hub that's happening in a certain area that we see? And I think I like the idea of the floating. I will be happy to talk to you about this, but I think it's a board discussion we all need to be involved in.
But I mean like following up and making sure that everything's in place and
Yes,
stuff
I
like
can
that
add
before
it to
comes back.
my follow-up list,
Beautiful.
yes.
Okay.
And I'm not going to put out any schools, but there were a couple schools that student services, myself, principal supervisors visited to have some discussions on school-based discipline and things that we were seeing inside of Focus and hearing from parents or just experiencing while we were there. So while I'm not going to walk through any of the schools that we visited, I just want to let you know that we do recognize throughout the year where there are some pockets of concerns. And we do go visit those schools and walk through with the leadership. What are we looking at? What is, walk us through this. We're looking at this data. We do comparative data to surrounding schools. These are your surrounding schools and what their data looks like versus your data with discipline. Tell us a little bit more about this. Are there supports that you need? How can we walk through this? Not differently, because we don't want to say that the school wasn't appropriately putting discipline in place, but are there maybe supports that are needed on the front side to mitigate the concerns that are happening on the back side? So we do have that throughout the year. I want to let you know that, and we will continue to do that. But we will get you a more comprehensive report of what we believe would be a potential option for the ISS at the elementary level. We can extend to secondary also, but our first focus will be elementary. Once again, it will not be every school, so we'll
Right.
put that in the report that we send over to the board members just for your guys' to review, and we can come back to future conversations.
Beautiful. All right, so I think you got direction on this one. The next one you're looking for, and I think Ms. Wright or Ms. Campbell had mentioned a little bit of it. Are you looking for the, which one are you looking for?
So we would look for the staffing, the behavior diversion, where we would look at reducing behavior techs and adding an additional social worker, and then we would look for direction on success pathways of the elementary teacher staffing.
You guys all good on this? We moved pretty quick, or
Yeah, I'm good with
Yeah.
that.
we're all good?
Yeah.
Good on the
Good
movement?
with that.
We're
I
good on
remember,
those
and
two.
just was going to reiterate, like Mr. Trent, I remember you coming last year and saying you're budgeting for 10, but you weren't going to hire all 10 because it wasn't any point to do that when we didn't know how many kids were actually going to be a
Right.
part of it.
Right.
So if you can handle it with 4 successfully, I don't want people sitting around twiddling their thumbs either. So I think this is a great switch.
So I appreciate you. It looks like your staff is taking care of, you got board
Yep,
direction.
we're good there. The next one would be the exclusionary period. This would be essentially, if we looked at it simplistically, it would be if a student had an infraction that was an expellable offense in the first 9 weeks, they would be out the remainder of the 9 weeks, plus the following 9 weeks, which would be roughly a 10 to 17 week window. This does not include 365s. This does not include felonies. This is
Right.
just students that commit an expellable offense that is not a 365, not a felony, and we would put them on the standard exclusionary period
Pretty good with this? Everybody okay?
document.
Yes,
We
sir.
saw
Okay,
you turn that
Dr. Rendell.
microphone on.
Sorry, I know you're going, but we got full board support.
Yeah, no, I'm watching.
Okay.
All right.
So you got full board support on that? Is that all you needed?
Yeah, we need that, and then it sounded like everybody was good with the stipulation conduct agreement where students would move from behavior diversion to success pathways, then to expulsion, but we'd extend the 9 weeks so we don't have the concern where the issue happens at the very end of the exclusionary period. We did put students, we did place them up for expulsion, sometimes retroactive or sometimes with a week or two left in probationary. I know, Ms. Wright, you and I had several conversations about this throughout the year. So we're working to put something in place that is more expansive and does provide students with, a stronger corrective strategy for their behavior.
And I would like to add one thing, that I had multiple principals call me, double-digit principals, and say, is there a way that the student can just go to success pathways? Why is that choice being taken away from me? I just want to add that instead of them being placed up for expulsion, they wanted to have another option. So this would give them that option as well.
With that, though, they wanted the option and the extended
Right, and
9
the
weeks that
extended.
we did in other frames. So they, Ms. Wright, they were in line with the conversations that you and I had about something happening at the very end of the exclusionary period and not really much. The student does it 3 days before the exclusionary period, and then they're back,
Right.
4 days later because the exclusionary period's over.
We gonna need discussion on this?
Yeah, no,
or-
I'm gonna get on one little small soapbox about this, but the word expelled getting thrown around, that drives me a little crazy, because I think the general public looks at expulsion as you are out of the schools for the remainder of the school year. So I'm like, I don't know if we can figure out a different word that makes sense that part of it is so confusing, because they're like, I got expelled, and then I'm back in January.
Yeah, we are working on the terminology shift from
Yeah.
expellable, because I know we talk expelled versus
Yes.
expelled, to alternative placement versus expulsion, right?
Yeah.
So alternative placement would be one of our programs, which could lead to expulsion. They will all still be categorized an expellable offense, but whenever we talk with parents, because that is a concern, the moment we sit down at a table and say, your son or daughter committed an expellable offense, they're like, well, so they're out of school? And then we
Yeah.
have to walk through the options that we're going to provide. And sometimes the answer is yes, they are out of school.
Yeah.
But majority of the time, the answer is no, we have a alternative program that we're going to discuss placement of your student once we get to a decision aspect of this meeting. So we have talked about that at length over the past year of working through some terminology.
Thank you.
Hey, we haven't said expelled in like 9 months.
Oh,
Just
just
put it out
Continue
there,
to-
put it out.
Continue to
Thank you
use
for
the expellable offense
Yep.
terminology.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All
it
good?
sounded like you guys were good with the graduating seniors and having that date in place. The information
Yep.
acknowledgement forms are
Yep.
good. I do want to recognize the work behind the scenes, which is Ms. Bland. She has done a fantastic job of not only getting these programs up and running, but also making changes and coming to me. We meet twice twice a month and really walk through what we're seeing in our schools and the data and any changes that we could look at making that would benefit schools and students. I also want to say that we receive quite a bit of reach out from other counties here in the state of Florida that are looking to do something very similar to what we are doing with regards to diversionary programs on campuses, and then success pathways, or a program that is online, as we went in that direction. And we do want to recognize that 50 to 60% of our students between the diversion programs are getting the opportunity to stay on their home campus, have continuity in their education, modify their behavior, get some supports in place, which is really something I think we should be proud of. But if you are at a meeting in the near future, don't be surprised, as we've already had a conference call with one other district. We've had multiple reach out to ask us what this looked like and how we got it in place.
So basically, we are the leading number one school district.
Yes, I was going to say board.
I talked it to
Diversionary.
FSBA to have you guys come speak at a conference, and they didn't bite, but so.
Well, they
toss
would
it
rather
again.
bite on really boring.
There were a lot of conversations with the DOE on the front side to also, as we work through this program, just making sure it was structured in the manner in which it needed to be. So
The problem is-
I could see in the future, Ms. Campbell, but I think for right now, it's, let districts put their feelers out, and then if more move in the direction, I would assume that they would look at
Problem
more
is those other
information.
districts don't have the discipline strength that we have. So when they go to move, they just can't put this piece in without the other piece. And that's what it is. All right. We're good? Everybody
Can we
good?
just thank them, thank you.
Yeah.
please?
Mr.
I
Chair.
just want you guys to know
Yeah.
that we
Oh,
really
Dr.
appreciate
Rendell, here's
all the
here's
hard
where you
work
wanted
that
to be.
you guys
Yeah, I'd love to weigh in at some point.
Yes.
So-
Yeah.
Well,
He's rushing us out.
I
feel
was
like
going
we're
to give
being
you that
rushed into,
chance,
like,
and then
we
you
gotta
said
do
you were
this.
good, so then I was coming back to you.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you for hollering, because I probably would have rolled right over it. And
You would.
Sure, I just want to remind the board, like, how we got here. So several years ago, Mr. Raymer and I were both high school principals, and we thought there has to be a better way. What we were doing with our kids with expellable offenses, we didn't think was the best way. And so, working with Misty and team and high school principals and middle school principals and elementary principals and the board, we came up with this different program. The goal was to keep kids in regular classes as much as possible, keep them on their main campus as much as possible. And so it's 50 to 60% of the kids that commit an expellable offense choose diversion, behavior diversion or drug diversion. If I remember right from the other presentation, about 75% of the students in drug diversion and about 75% of the students in behavior diversion are successful. So they remain on campus. They remain in all 7 of their regular classes, or all 6 of their regular classes. They just can't participate in extracurricular activities. They're on a behavior contract. If it's drugs, they have to go to the counseling and the drug testing and stuff like that. But those kids would not have been able to stay on their main campus, stay in those classes under the old version of what we were doing. They were removed from their school, sent to an alternative location. Some of them didn't show up at the alternative location. They definitely weren't as successful as they could be back in the regular 6 or 7 classes at their home campus. So that was the goal. And we've definitely achieved that goal with, over half of the students choosing behavior or drug diversion and 75% of those being successful in that program. So today we're just kind of like working on the details.
Yep.
Like, what can we tweak here? What can we tweak here to be better? But the fact that this is what we're talking about is amazing.
Yep.
And I remember the first year we did the drug diversion, we had some principals very hesitant, and then
some board
the second
members
year
too,
this
Dr.
year where we added behavior diversion, again, principals very hesitant, but they've embraced it and they've used it, to the benefit of the students. That's the biggest thing is we are getting calls from other districts wanting to know, wait, you don't have alternative schools anymore? What are you doing with your kids? You just expelling them all? Like, no, actually quite the opposite. We're trying to keep them on campus. But we hold them to a higher standard,
That's
of
the
behavior
key.
and conduct. And, once the principals realize that, yes, you can move forward with the next level of discipline if they violate the behavior conduct stipulation agreement, they're like, well, this makes sense. So all of it's been about the benefit of the students, and, working through the details. I actually think it's amazing that we're at this point. We're not talking about, do we keep doing this or not? It's like, what can we do with this program to make it even better? To support the K-3 students, because, they need some support. So maybe a different model for them, but kudos to the staff, the teachers, the principals, Misty's staff, James's leadership, to make this happen. It was an idea, became more than an idea, more than a pilot. First drug diversion, then behavior diversion, and now the, success pathways as the other part. Just a really great package. And, we just be commended for the fact that we're in this place. And
It's a big accomplishment.
It
for you,
doesn't,
Dr.
it
Rendell.
doesn't show up on paper really, but it does.
Yep.
Because, our scores are higher in academic achievement. Well, a lot of these kids would not maybe have been as successful in the classroom if they had been
It
removed from
wouldn't
the
be.
classroom. So,
We just know that. We know they
Yeah.
would not be being at the
and the
alternative.
graduation rate increasing and all of this is a part of all of that. So just wanted to remind us, when we're talking about, to tweak this, tweak that, what a great place we're in.
No, I can't commend you guys enough. I think we all do the
No, I
same
know,
thing.
and,
No.
and at the time it was a very unknown thing. Everyone was going, "What are you doing? You're closing the ALCs. This is going to be horrible." And so there's a lot of fear around that. And the drug diversion thing, I think, is one of the biggest things because I set out on this path of figuring out, like, is there any kind of drug counseling for kids? It doesn't exist, which is such a shame. I'm like, you can find all kinds of counseling and rehab and whatever else for adults, but until this program came about, like, this is really, I think, honestly, the first one that I have seen. I could not find any others that were out there for people to take a hold of, and hopefully those lessons.
Well, the board needs to give itself a pat on the back because we wouldn't have been able to do it if you hadn't allowed us and supported us to do it.
Well, it's a team effort, right? So that's what it is. So thank
Right.
you, guys.
Everybody good?
I was just going to chime in, when I first started looking at getting involved and running for the school board, I had run across a lot of teachers or spouses of teachers, and they were all getting ready to jump ship.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many people I ran across that the wheels were coming off.
Yeah.
They didn't feel like they were supported with discipline. That was the main thing.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that before I even got on the board, you guys did a lot of heavy lifting, getting things in place. We've done some good things since then with closing the ALCs and everything. But I just want to give all you guys credit on all the work you guys have done because you've really turned it around, and to see where we're at with our graduation rates and all the academic improvements. It's just, this board and the staff get beat up a lot by the people that want to point fingers. But I can tell you, if you look at all the positives, there's been so many good things that have happened over the last few years, and it's moving in the right direction. And I just want to say thank you to all you guys for all your work. And that was under your leadership, Dr. Rendell, so thank you.
All good?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to take a break while Ms. Hand sets up, and we'll be back. Our next two presentations will be presented by the famous Miss Sue Han, Deputy Superintendent. Miss Han.
Okay, well, I am not going to exceed expectations this morning, so. So first topic is property disposition, and we just wanted to brief you on some of the things that will be coming on your agenda that potentially we are looking at either for sale or lease or some combination of those things. So just wanted to run through these very quickly. I think, in general, we should be doing a periodic review of our property because we do have these assets and to some extent we may not need them. And so I wanted to just kind of set the stage for coming back to you periodically with an analysis of some of our properties. Typically speaking, when we sell property, meaning land versus property, meaning stuff, that the proceeds from those sales must go into the capital fund. So as we're working through our capital funding issues, this can be a supplemental resource for reinvestment in our schools. So that's one of the reasons that we're bringing this to you today.
Sue, could you repeat that?
Yes, when we are selling,
Where does the money go again?
it goes into our capital fund. So it has to be reinvested in our capital building. So it
Great.
can't be used for operating expenses. So,
was
and
for the
that,
public.
that is actually in state statute.
Yeah.
So, and when you see a resolution on your agenda, that language will be in the resolution, and it will also be in the cover memo that stipulates the what we're selling and why. Property sales is also kind of a policy call on the part of the board because typically we do have community interests in some of our properties, as you've seen. Some properties have significance for local communities. Some properties are used by community members for a variety of things. So, there's a balance in terms of our role as a school district and optimizing our resources available for the educational mission, and then also being a good community partner. And so, just wanted to set that framework, and that's why you don't see all of our properties that we might not be using on the agenda. We try to be very selective on those that we as the school district can live without, and also perhaps do not have a community tie or community use that is significant. So that's kind of the framework for what we're going to be talking about today. So just to get right into the content, there's going to be 6 properties that I want to talk with you about this morning. I'll start in the north. So Kyler is part of a larger tract. The school district actually owns this entire tract, but the bulk of the use of the tract is the Brevard County Community Center. And so what we're proposing will not affect that, but we will need to separate the southwestern corner of the tract in order to sell or lease that property. That is the former Kyler School, and we have had maintenance folks in there on occasion, but it's been quite some time before quite some time since anyone has been in the building on a regular basis. The back end of the building is in severe disrepair, and so anyone who purchases or wants to lease that property will need to deal with that. We've had some community interest in it in the past, and the investment that was required to bring it up to a standard that is usable was really pretty prohibitive for that community group, and I would expect that to be the same for any user. So that is one of the proposed potential sales.
And that's Harry Moore Avenue. Is that the road that goes to the Harry Moore Center?
It is not.
It is not.
This is east of US 1.
It's east of US
East
1.
of, right, it's east of US 1 and north of 46.
Right, there's the river. Okay, thank you.
And this
Just
is-
to reiterate what Mrs. Han said, is the bulk of this property is actually part of a park that Brevard County Parks and Rec utilizes. And so just the box in the bottom left, that's the actual building.
So you do,
Looking for the board's input on whether or not to move forward with subdividing this out, or?
Yes, I'm looking for input because I'd like to either move forward or take it off the table. because this one requires some work.
This park that they're using, what are they using it for? the park?
This is a.
Yeah, there's youth leagues out there,
Yeah.
baseball, and this is a small, I think that's a gymnasium to the bottom right.
I thought, okay, so that's the large section that's all we own, going south and see those.
We own everything
We
inside
own
the-
everything in the
What
box.
that operation is just south of it?
Right here, this
Right here?
building.
South. Keep going south. See all those little dots? Over
To
here?
the right?
Those are houses, I think, of some sort.
This is generally in a neighborhood, but no, I don't actually know what's here.
What do you have there? It might be a bee farm of some sort. It might
Yeah.
be.
I just wanted to, who owns the house up there in the left-hand corner?
This is not a house. This is owned by Brevard County, so it's part of the county's complex.
I'm good with this one.
Yeah, I, obviously, this one's my community, so I do think that it's worth at least some sort of, let's talk to the community about it. I don't have any opposition about it because it is just sitting there falling apart more so, but I think it's fair to at least give ample notice and talk to that community. If we look at maybe sending some sort of notice to them that, hey, this is something the board is discussing. If you want to weigh in on it, we would like to hear your input. Or there might even be somebody in that community who wants to buy it from us, who knows, you know?
And that's kind of our thought too. I've tried to do that kind of loosely and have not really gotten any response, but if we have some additional context, I'd be happy to do that directly. So
Okay, all
if you
right. Well, I
could-
have some that I could definitely
Okay.
forward to you that I think would be community members that would want to know if this
Okay,
building was
sure.
going. It is sitting there falling apart, and I remember the last time that we took the tour up there, Sue, you and I were up there, and we were looking at it, and there was an organization, and we were going to allow them to lease that building from us for, I think, like 50 years or something. It was a really long time, the lease. That was when I first got on the board, and I was walking around there going, this is a huge capital renovation because it is falling apart. It has not been set foot in for a long time. Not to say that somebody might not see this and say, I see the potential and I can do something with it, and we would like to see at least it be revitalized. But I'm okay with moving forward on subdividing it out. I think that's, regardless, that has to be done. I think that that's a good idea to go ahead and move forward with that. And then my other ask would be, let's go ahead and make sure the community knows that this is a discussion that the board is having, and then get their opinions, give them the ability to come voice any concerns or things that they might see before the board weighs in on a final decision with it.
Absolutely, thank you.
Mr. Chair? Sir. Has there been any kind of market analysis to even know if this is sellable as far as, is there a market for it?
Yes, we've had it appraised, and our realtors also looked at it, so yes.
Because it's in a neighborhood, correct? And it's-
Yes. The highest and best use here may be something like a daycare or something like that, but they would have to look at the facility. My guess is they would renovate to the extent that the back end is gone, and the front end is okay, but that requires quite a bit of work regardless, so. But yes, we've had them look at this site.
Okay.
This is unincorporated, right? So the county
Correct.
determines the
Correct.
zoning.
Right.
Yes. We did review these with the Capital Outlay Committee last Monday, the intergovernmental group that we work with, and so the county's aware that we're looking at this. One of the key decisions we need to make is where this line is, so that we don't create a non-conforming lot, and we make sure that there's proper setbacks from the building to the property line type of thing, so if this becomes under different ownership. So we have to take that into consideration, so this will be a bit of work with Brevard County. We've got our surveyor kind of looking at how we might separate this to do exactly that. This is Riverview. And we have a longstanding tenant at River, but we actually have two. But the major community use is the Hummingbird Food Pantry. And we would like to propose giving them some degree of notice to vacate. That gives them an opportunity to relocate to another location. There are some very good potential reuses of this site, and so it is valuable to the school district. We have North Area Maintenance in this area, so we've got to move too. So this is not something that's easy to do, but I feel like we should consider whether or not in the future we would be looking to sell this property or to reuse it for district purposes. And if we are going to do that, we need to start talking to our tenant. They're on a year-to-year facility use agreement, but they're pretty embedded in the facility and in the community, so I want to make sure that we treat them fairly.
Who is maintaining the building?
We are maintaining the building.
And I'm assuming that's getting more costly as the years go by.
All right, I'll weigh in on this one because this is mine too. So I feel very passionate about this one because Hummingbird Food Pantry serves such a huge amount of the North End population and the low-income North End population that go there and rely on it for groceries. And so I think it's probably worth, I don't know if you've ever been up there when they're distributing food, but it's probably worth seeing because I think when you see that, you're just going, I don't know how we could ever take that away from the community. So I understand the need of saying, okay, looking for a 2-year notice to vacate, but I've talked to the mayor of Titusville. I'm like, hey, can you think of anything else that maybe this could work for? The other thing with this particular school is that not very far down the road, there was a golf course that was closed, and that's been vacant and been a very heavily contested area with rezoning and just all kinds of stuff. And my concern is like, okay, so if we close this down, now we're gonna have another vacated space just right down the road. Not to mention, it butts up to a very nice area of Titusville, Laceda, the country club there, the golf course and whatnot. So, I mean, I can understand, this one's just used. So you walk in that place and like virtually every single square foot of it's used. There's a computer repair, there's I guess it's a non-for-profit. I'm not sure if it's a non-for-profit, but I don't think he's charging money, but he teaches elder people how to use computers and he repairs their computers for free. And they come in and you go in there and there's a ton of computer stuff everywhere. But that's another huge, a benefit to the community. And so I feel different about this one because it is so utilized. Kyler is not utilized. No one's inside of that building on a regular basis. Someone is inside of this building every single day. So I can't support that without knowing that Hummingbird had a place to go and the computer place had a place to go. Obviously, our facilities folks, we would be able to control that to some degree, but I just feel like we would be doing a huge disservice to the community in the North End because of how used this facility is. That's my 2 cents about that one.
How much of the property do they use? They use a smaller section of it?
They use a large section of it, mainly the cafeteria, right? Because a lot of the groceries and stuff like that come in need to be refrigerated, so they need that huge commercial refrigeration area. But that building 4, is that the cafeteria? I'm just trying to see the one that's numbered 4 on there. Actually, let me think about this, of where it's at. So there, see, I'm like, I don't want to
I
speak.
think they're in here somewhere.
It's in the back corner, so
somewhere,
right above 4.
yeah.
What is
Right.
4? I think they use part of 4 as well, though.
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I think all the loading happens in here. So the area is somewhere around here, but I
Yeah, I was
don't
there
know.
recently. It's the southwest corner of the building.
So they
Right.
pay for their electric, they pay for all that stuff. Oh, it's on our electric.
Yep.
Well, and maybe that's something that we discuss with them on seeing if there is a way for it not to be cost neutral to the district. Or is your thought process with this, you mentioned that what would we do with this building? So if we told everyone that we wanted them out, what would the plan be from there?
So I think there would be potentially an opportunity to just put it on the market and see what the market bears. And our realtor believes this is a pretty valuable piece of property given its location. There could be some other uses that are, similar to how we use the property potentially for, depending on how things are shaking out in the educational marketplace in that arena.
I think our initial, if you said today we could empty the building, we would sell it. We would sell the property because it's a pretty valuable piece of property. And again, that's capital infusion that we could use, for different capital needs. I think it's a good idea for us to work with the community to look for a possible relocation of the food pantry. And if we can identify a place, amenable for them to be moved to, that frees up, the tenant that is really the most concerning that we wouldn't want to boot out.
And just out of curiosity, because I've seen them do it before, and I'm with you, Ms. Wright, if you want to protect your north, support you. If they were to move to another location, could they take the refrigeration equipment and everything and bring it with them?
It's ours.
relocate it, it's ours, but we wouldn't
I
use it.
think we're talking about huge industrial built in.
Probably not easy to move.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know how the heck you would.
Yeah, the location is actually not very easily accessible, and they all drive in for the food delivery. And so,
I'm
if there is another location,
I was just,
They
my
would just
thing
drive
was,
to that.
they're a food pantry and they really need that refrigeration. That's the one
Right.
thing that's gonna cost them on the location.
Oh, no, the Capitol, the
Well,
building is,
If we have an agreement, but I'm assuming we're not, if they're not paying their utilities, I'm assuming they're also not paying a rent, we have some kind of longstanding.
It is not a lease. They're there under the facility use agreement, so every year they redo their facility use agreement.
Okay.
So
So I think it might be worth what Dr. Rendell suggested, which is let's talk to them and say, we will help you. Let's see if we can find a better location that's better for you and that frees up this property, not just we're kicking you out and you got 2 years. I think I understand the coldness of that and the need, but if we can work with them on other properties that I'm assuming you're suggesting that we actually might have some other places.
I'm not sure if we have
Or
some
that we
other
can
places,
help
but we
them.
have contacts,
Yeah. To be more centrally located, on a board of a nonprofit. I mean, we have a budget and we have capital expenses and all that. So we're providing the space for community service. But I think if we can work with them on that and start having a conversation, I'm not ready to say, yeah, boot them out and let's put this on the market. But I think it's good to start to initiate conversation and say, hey, let's talk about what the future might look like.
Where were they
That's fair.
before they came to us?
they were in a church building area that's off of 405, and it caused a huge backup of traffic on 405 because the line was so long, and they had to move them based off of that. So, yeah, which is, and this one, I mean, it's in a neighborhood. The access point is a problem, but I never understood why they didn't create an access point from Country Club Drive. That's a much easier route to get into than having to go through a neighborhood and go, because it's back tucked into a neighborhood, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
What do you want to do, Ms. Rowe?
I've already stated I'm not comfortable with this one, just based on what's happening right now. Unless I could ensure that there was a placement for these services that provide a huge, huge service, these companies that provide huge services to our community, I feel like this one, I need that first before I would feel comfortable moving forward. Otherwise, it's going to create a real hardship for them that I don't know that they're going to be able, I don't know. I mean, maybe they have somewhere else, but until I know that, I guess I don't think I can make a decision on this one. Or if you asked me right now today, I would be like, no, I would not want to make that decision until I knew there was placement for them somewhere.
Mr. Thomas?
Well, I think I agree with what Dr. Rendell said to a point. I don't think it should handcuff us as far as stopping from moving forward with the sale of it. I think we have, as a school board, fiscal responsibility to manage our properties and use our funds for our mission. As much as we love Hummingbird, and their mission, that's, we have to look out what's best for us for the future and providing the capital needs, fulfilling the capital needs of our district. So I would say yes to moving forward with exploring it. We certainly should work with the city about trying to find a viable place for Hummingbird to move to. I just wouldn't want it to hold us up from moving forward with exploring, the sale of it.
Yeah, I could just echo what Mr. Thomas had said, and Dr. Rendell as well. And it shouldn't hold us up. But when I heard 2 years, I mean, that's a lifetime in the real estate business. And hoping we can obviously work with them in the community of finding a new home. But again, being a fiscal conservative with a heart, we can do a combination of both of those. So yeah, let's not let us stop the conversation.
I think, so if we look at what Ms. Campbell is right, and what I feel too, is that nobody here feels comfortable booting them out. Let's look for an alternative, and if one works out, then we come back to have a conversation, but until then, we don't do anything as far as that, if that makes sense to you. I don't feel like sending them a 2-year notice to vacate until we can kind of have some other conversations, if that makes sense to you. I don't want to go to them and say, look, you got 2 years, let's do this. But we should explore it first and then come back. I don't know, Ms. Rett, what do you want to do? You need like 3 to 6 months to do it?
No, I mean, I think it's a have before we send any kind of notice to vacate. So maybe setting up a meeting with the Hummingbird Food Pantry and ourselves and talking to them about the position that we're in as far as the district goes. And I understand our, obviously our need and our responsibility as far as being fiscally conservative and not just holding on to properties to hold on to properties. But I think the interesting thing about this school is, and one of the interesting things is I'm like, it's not in that bad of shape when you walk around it and compared to some of the schools that you go to that are vacant, and you're like, this one's not that bad. So I feel like step one before, and you're gonna have to forgive me because I'm a bit blindsided with this. We didn't get to see this I didn't see this until right now. So I'm just like, okay. I feel like step one would be let's set up a meeting with Hummingbird Food Pantry and have that discussion before anything else.
Are you
Yeah.
okay with that?
Yes, that's
And then
fine.
maybe we start those discussions.
I would like to be a part of that meeting if possible as well, okay?
Okay,
And I'll
sure.
bring the mayor as well, and we'll bring a few other people that
Okay.
own property that could potentially weigh in on some solutions.
Sure, I think as long as we get the conversation started.
Yes.
I think that's a step in the right direction, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
And then we have Cape View. So I believe we have successfully relocated all of our internal assets and such from Cape View over to Roosevelt, or we've taken a few things to some other schools. So we've pretty much vacated that area. And so I wanted to check in with the board on how you would like us to proceed. Our Realtor believes that we could potentially do a triple net lease, which is basically, you lease the property from us and you're responsible for everything. Because I've kind of told our Realtor that I've got enough that I'm landlord over right now, so I'm not interested in taking on any other responsibilities as a landlord for a private entity. So, but she suggested the triple net lease is a potential option. So she said either of those or both.
Does that put them on the tax rolls, or does that mean that they're still off the tax rolls?
It would be taxable. It would be on the tax rolls. Yeah, now they would end up paying us and we'd pay the tax bill as the property owner, but yeah,
But then we still get a portion of that taxable back eventually. So
potentially. Paul, am I stating that correctly? I think that's how I understood that, correct? Yeah.
They pay real estate taxes, building insurance, and common area maintenance. AI says.
Yeah.
Sorry, because I had the same question about what is that?
This is two separate parcels, correct? Or is this all part of one parcel separated by the road?
These are separate parcels.
Separate parcels, okay, so we leave the joint use agreement in play for Cherry Down that we have right now with the
Correct.
county, correct?
Correct.
Is it the county that
Yes.
maintains that? Yes. Okay,
Yes. And this property is privately owned.
interesting.
Yep.
Wow.
Sue, what is the benefit of doing the triple net lease versus just selling the property outright?
There really isn't a benefit. They just suggested that it could be marketable in either situation.
That we're open
But
to
with-
either. In case we can't get a buyer, we could get maybe a lessee.
Well, I've had a conversation with Nick Farinella. I know that he thinks there's an interest in that property. And so I would think that from a developer standpoint, that's a pretty nice piece of property that we could make a significant amount of money on to put in the capital fund.
Potentially, yes.
I agree.
It's interesting that you've
It
had a
makes sense
conversation
to, I was going to say, it makes sense to open it up to both in case we don't have a buyer, but we can get someone who wants to lease it, whatever people are open to. But I'm good with moving forward
I
with this
think the
one.
direction, that Sue's looking for is, do we want to move forward with,
looking into it.
Yep.
sales and or lease? The city of Cape Canaveral, I think, is going to review the zoning for it. They may want to change the zoning themselves, to the stay zone. That's correct.
What's interesting
Correct.
is those parcels right around the bottom corner right there, the beachside access is also owned by the county.
I thought that we owned, I thought we owned I heard that somewhere, that we had owned part of the parcel that's below it or something. At the school board, somebody said that one time, and I was like, I don't think we do. This parcel right below Cherry Down.
No, I think the county owns this.
Correct, the county
This
owns
is
Okay.
privately owned. I've got a map that's got all of this. There's a bit more over here to the east.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at them right now. I'm clicking.
Are you? Okay. And I pull the property appraiser site up. That's what I'm
No,
like,
they were
we're going
right,
to.
because years ago, I think we did own one of those parcels, because Dane Theodore, before Mr. Hand and I were going back and forth about it, because it was empty, and I think we did do something with that property. I can't remember. the small
That was before my time.
So as of now, we're looking at keeping, not doing anything with the Cherry Downs Park area.
Correct.
Right.
Right, so what you would see on your agenda next would be a resolution that would authorize the sale of this property.
Okay.
That would be the next step.
And we selected a Realtor to handle all of our transactions, is that correct?
We did, that's correct.
And just to clarify, we've actually had one before. It was a big stir around the time of the Cape View closing, like, oh, they're anticipating. No, we worked with Realtor before because we've sold off little parcels here and there through the years. I think the first time we got a Realtor was in like 2020-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's about right, because we had
Right,
the
like the
contract
Neiman
expired.
Avenue over by West Shore. We've had little
Yep.
pieces
Yep.
and parcels. I didn't see any of those in here before we move on to the other stuff. We've got some little spots down in Palm Bay. I know there's some that are big enough to build a school on, but we've got some that are like, you know, a couple acres. It's not anything that we could build something on. Are those, do we still have some of those?
We do not. The small
Have we already
one,
gotten rid of those?
there was one in Port St. John that was on your agenda
Yes.
a few weeks ago.
Right.
That's one of the smallest ones.
Okay.
2 acres.
Yeah, it's about 2
I was thinking
acres.
there was one by a park down in Palm Bay, but maybe we already,
We,
The Frisbee Park.
the Frisbee Park is a pretty big site.
okay, never
That's,
mind then.
so we do have some, that's one that is used by the city, and I actually looked at that one, it's off of Krasner, and it's to the east of the regional park. And I looked at that one and went and kind of looked at their website, and it is actively used as a park.
Okay.
So that's why it's not on your agenda.
But we did-
Okay, thank you.
We did give access to one of those parcels in Palm Bay recently, because I looked at it, it was like 5 to 10 acres or something like that.
That was the one that was on our last board.
Anyways, yeah, we're good.
We digress.
It's good.
Okay.
It's all
Sorry.
good here. Yeah,
Okay.
We're getting it.
Thank you. This is one that is part of a larger tract. So this is the southeast corner of Freedom 7, so the Freedom 7 Elementary School campus. This is basically an office building, and it's got its own parking and all of that. So other than putting the facilities department in this building, there's potentially an opportunity to separate this tract. We would look at how to make sure that we have enough parking for the building, enough parking and access for the school, so that we don't create any complications regarding access, but we have access to this road, and this is Ramp Road, the park's out here. And so I think this is doable, and our realtor believes that this is another one that could either be sold or with a triple net lease, and thought the
this-
triple net lease might be more.
It's not being used at all right now?
Psychological service.
We had psychological services there, but we can put any staff that's in there in schools.
School board office.
Yeah. It's-
That's convenient for us all to get to.
Yeah,
Sell it now.
I
yeah.
could walk there. That's
That makes sense. And the fence, I mean, are we talking about having to move fencing, or is the fencing already like along the line of the
Fencing is
playground?
more or less already there.
So we're not having to change any of
Right.
that?
So we recently did a transaction with the city of Cocoa Beach where we gave them the retention pond. And so because they have the park over here, we actually owned the park property, and it was probably better for the city to own the property since it's a boat ramp and restrooms and all those things that are a park. Right, so we transferred that to the city, and they took over the pond, and we have the right to drain into the pond.
Okay. I think
So-
that's a good idea.
Mr. Chair?
Sir?
I just know in our past discussion about doing not with this site, but a private-public partnership, maybe building some residences or what have you on some school property. I know that you had expressed some concerns about having security, there might be some security concerns about having a private entity so close to a school campus. I was just curious, where this is located, do you have those concerns, or?
This is far enough away from the main school activities, and also we've got the park next door. So there's activity here that's pretty close to the outdoor recreation area for the school that's kind of right over here.
And the rec center is right next to it.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not likely they're going to put a gas station or something there, but maybe like a doctor's office of, you know, or if the building's in good
I think
shape.
in our conversation, it was more like somebody having the kids are right there on the playground, and your building is overlooking the playground, and
Right.
And I suspect the city will have some zoning restrictions on this that will limit its use. And, you know, we could potentially put deed restrictions on it too as well if we had some concerns.
Yeah, I imagine it'll be a professional
Yeah.
building like dentist's office
Yep.
or physician's office or something like
Right
that.
next to the school, there's a lot of opportunity for them.
We'll have some-
All good.
Good.
I don't think anybody has any problem with it. Go through 'em.
Thank you.
Oh, we got that one down.
And then as we are working towards the completion of the new separate day school, we'll be moving all of the functions from Gardendale on Merritt Island to the new separate day school, potentially around January. And we would like to prepare this facility for potential sale, or again, our realtor said potentially a triple net lease. Had an interesting conversation with them yesterday in that we could offer this in different ways. So either as its own whole parcel, we could separate this parcel and sell this separately, and potentially we could look at separating the properties here. I've got some, I'm not sure this is going to work with setbacks in here, but this almost looks like two separate, you know, there's a separate building, separate parking, separate entrance. So she said we could potentially be creative in looking at selling this property as to different ways to sell it, or you know, we would consider different offers.
Such a gigantic piece, and that 68, isn't that it's almost like a park pavilion?
It is.
Right?
It is. The county used to use this field, and they basically gave us that building 68 and told us that they didn't want to use the property anymore. This was about 3 or 4 years ago,
So
maybe.
we're mowing the grass on this gigantic,
It's, yeah.
It's huge, yeah.
this is where we
Yeah.
put the robot mowers.
In my thought, or in my apologies,
No, it's fine.
a lot of space industry takes a lot of buildings in there.
Yeah.
And there's like, I watch it happen, a lot of them are running out of space on Kennedy Space Center. Might be an opportunity for somebody because of the access roads, not too small, but there's some, you know, I don't know, I think it would be great. I'm in favor. See what you can do. All right. Sunshine Groves.
Okay. So this one is really interesting. So this is Sunrise Elementary here, way south Palm Bay. This is Babcock Street. This is the St. John's Heritage Parkway. 95 is over here. This tract is a bunch of little teeny skinny lots. And so we own the little teeny skinny lots. I believe that we will use this tract at some point for a school. But I don't believe that we'll be building a school there anytime in the next 10 years. And the reason for that is there's no utilities there. This is a dirt road. So in order to make this buildable for a school, we would have to invest substantially in the civil infrastructure to support a school. And so our realtor said she thought she could potentially do some sort of land lease on this for somebody who might want to use it for, I don't know, something.
Horses.
Yeah. And so I have it on the agenda today to inquire if you all would be open to that idea, because I definitely do not want to sell it, but I feel like if we had some other opportunities, you know, it would allow her to put it out there and see what we get.
I think that totally makes.
Pork chop lane on it?
Yes, yes, it does.
Sure enough. That is what we should lease it for.
Put some hogs on there, it'll clear that whole area.
So that St. John's Heritage Parkway, it's deceptive, but it literally ends, and that has gone so slowly
Right.
for the county to finish that off. One day it'll be finished, and this whole area will explode, but one day keeps getting pushed back. When I first moved here, it was going to be done anytime now, and I've been here for almost 20 years. So I think it behooves us to go ahead and then that's just St. John's Heritage Parkway. Then they'll have to do all this other stuff. So I think it makes sense to go ahead and lease, think the 5 to 10 years, see what people are open for. That makes total sense. And we also have property potentially on the other side of the highway, which if that other side of St. John's Heritage Parkway, which is going to be blowing up soon, it's already kind of starting, we're very likely to, that's kind of where we're looking at saving up to build a school over on,
Yep,
on that
the other
side.
side.
So,
That's a bunch of trees on that property, right?
Yes,
We don't let them cut it down. They're gonna lease it, they gotta keep the
the
trees.
trees.
Sue, the only thing I would suggest is, and I don't know, I'm not sure about where these discussions are, but I've heard that there was discussions with developers, and part of the discussions were to continue the St. John's Heritage Parkway. I don't know how imminent that is, if that's even the right location, but I would just make sure that before we enter in any kind of long-term lease, that we make sure we know what the lay of the land is with the city.
Yeah, but I think
I'm sure you
that's
would
the
anyways,
difference
but-
between a 5 and a 10-year though, right? It's not a difference between doing it and not doing it. Because even if they do that, it's still years out before they get the road done and the neighborhood's done and all that.
Yeah, we will check in with the city and the county on that point, because I've literally worked on the Parkway my entire career here in Brevard County in various roles, so I've.
It was going to be named St. Sue Heritage Park.
No, and it moves around a bit, so yeah, we'll check in on that. The county's got some utility projects going on, plant-type projects going on in that area too. So anyway, I felt like it was just worth exploring, and nothing may come of this, but it was just an idea that I thought was worth bringing to you.
Ms. Sue, I might add that there is an opportunity, and I apologize, but it just came, that location that's in Cocoa Beach. We are in the middle of working on a clinic plan, and we need a beachside location for a clinic. So if we can pause for about 2 weeks to figure out if that might be a location, that would be, if you guys are okay with that, just to hang tight.
So far out of the way.
I think it's a great location.
Listen,
So when we're
no,
talking
I'm
about
not,
beachside,
I'm not
thinking
lying
like
to you.
Satellite, Indian Harbor, not.
Well,
if
there's
you-
easy access to it from that. I mean, you're still
can even
A1A.
come by
I mean,
boat.
Just hang on, guys.
Oh, Lord.
If we move forward, there's 2 paths on it. If you move forward with, it would be part of the conversation. So if we could just pause on it for 2 weeks, it'd be great. And then we can always bring that idea back to the board for discussion.
Yeah.
But just keep it in there as part of it. I agree with you that the best central location is Satellite, but it might be that if it's going to save us $1 million, then, you know.
So will it be the realtor's responsibility to identify the property owners around this who may already be using agriculture, who might be interested in a, handful of acres?
Don't let them
Yes,
cut the
they would do all that.
Okay, fantastic.
Don't let them cut the trees.
Pork chop farm.
Pork
chop farm.
Love it. That's a nickname. Okay, Ms. Hand, what else do you need?
I think that is all. So I think I've gotten some direction on each of these, so thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I will move on to just kind of giving you a little bit of a heads up on the budget review. We'll be presenting formally to you on July 28th, so just wanted to kind of go through where we are. But I wanted to start with kind of some things that you all were talking about earlier with Mr. Raymer and Ms. Bland. We make investments in our students. Like when we're on the finance side, we talk about expenditures, but really, I want to try to maintain the mindset that we are investing in our students and our community, that, these are investments. They're not necessarily expenditures. So, when we get into the weeds of the budget, it all sounds like math and, expenditures, but you want to try to remember that there are people behind all these numbers and that we do good work and we achieve great results with our investments. So just wanted to start with that and lead with that thought. Recapping briefly from June 16th, I just wanted to kind of recall where we talked about the board policy 6235, the commitment to maintaining a fund balance of 3.5% of the general fund revenue, and then the policy about the adopted budget shall include a reserve for at least 3% of the district's general fund revenue. So we kind of landed there just barely at the end of fiscal year 25. And so when we're building the fiscal 26 budget, I want to make sure that we at least hit the 3% target. So to just kind of tell you where we are in fiscal 26, we haven't closed yet. That's going to be about another 30 to 45 days of work. You'll see that formally in your September board meeting. So in the September 9th formal adoption of the budget, you will also see the annual financial report for fiscal year 26. So those 2 things will be on your agenda. But I'm confident that our expenditures are going to be exceeding our revenues in fiscal 26. So just kind of keep that in mind. And as I mentioned in June, 75 to 80% of our budget is in staffing, so it's very difficult to do mid-course corrections at the end of the period. So when we're doing corrections, we need to start thinking about them very early in the fiscal year to make sure that we are within balance. So some of the things that we've been doing, big effort around trying to identify eligible capital expenditures. And when I had on my facilities hat, I was trying to avoid doing that. But now that I have a finance hat on as well, really trying to look at the balance between our operational needs and our capital needs. And we do have a fairly robust capital source with the sales surtax. And so felt comfortable that given our operational needs right now, that this was a priority to look at what we could reasonably fund through capital. So our folks in facilities have done a really good job looking at some of our expenditures that are eligible for capital as a source of funding that we haven't been using. So we did a pretty deep dive into that. And that's been a big effort that we've been doing in cooperation with the finance team. So our folks in facilities have put together a big list of functions, people, expenditures that we have not been charging to capital, so that our director of accounting can then touch base with our auditors and make sure that everybody's comfortable. We've got a process in place for documenting those things. So if we decide, tomorrow that I'm going to be charged a particular way, there's a documentation as to why we've made that decision and how it conforms to the statutory language on eligible expenditures for capital. So that's been a lot of the work that we've been doing lately, and that's going to be the big chunk of difference in fiscal year 26 when we ultimately close. There'll be a pretty big capital transfer. But we've been doing some other things. One of the things that we realized is that the percentage calculation is based on general fund revenue, and that we are allowed to take the charter pass-through out of that number.
Okay.
And so that is helpful because the charter number goes in and goes out. So we don't need to keep a reserve in Brevard Public Schools for the charter number. So that's the theory behind that. So that you'll see that change in our financial statements for 26. So that's been a little bit helpful to us.
Question, does that affect the 3% that the state requires or the 3.5% that's in board policy? What is that going to impact?
It affects the board policy for sure.
Okay.
And I believe it also affects the state, but
Okay.
I'd have to confirm that, but I believe it does.
Okay.
Because those are.
Theoretically, both, because
Yeah.
the state rule should be applied to the charter as well, theoretically. We shouldn't have to keep an extra savings account.
We're not keeping their
Right.
reserves,
Right.
right. And we don't need to keep reserves on their behalf.
Right.
Makes sense.
Right. So that'll help a little bit. So in terms of 27, where we are right now, we finally got the last numbers in from the state last Friday, and I'll talk a little bit about the tax rate at the end, but we have loaded our departmental budget requests basically as they were submitted. We're going to be including a capital transfer that's similar to what we're doing this year. So the 27 capital fund is going to be very heavy in the operational transfer again. And we have included the 3% contingency to conform with board policy. And we're also trying to evaluate where we think the shortfall will be in 26 and make sure that we don't create a similarly sized shortfall. So there's a little bit of like savings going on in the budget preparation. And then just want to make sure that you all know that between now and September, we're going to have to be doing some right sizing. So we didn't have enough data to do that right now. We don't know what our enrollment's going to be. There's a lot of variables that are still in play. And so we've got it, this is how it is today, but it will be very likely different when we see September. And I'll keep you all updated as we go through that. The key strategy that I think is going to help us is a continuous monitoring of where we are in both revenues and expenditures. Like, we have to really remember that a budget is a plan. And so just because we, and with my operational hat, for example, we have a budget doesn't mean that the revenue has come in to support that budget. So we have to balance both the actual revenues and the actual expenditures and make sure that we are spending within the revenues that we are actually receiving.
Right.
Our tax revenue is pretty reliable, but we've had other revenues like Medicaid reimbursement as an example where we may have overestimated, and we in finance want to keep better track of that. And so we're putting in place some monitoring tools, and that will allow us to make more adaptable decisions going forward. So these are some of the things we talked about in June that we'll be doing and we are doing. So those are all in progress. Property sales we talked about this morning, and just kind of looking at ways that we can affect both our revenues and our expenditures. Looking at healthcare, looking at business case analysis on some things like who we charge for fingerprinting services and that type of thing. So, really doing a deep dive into a lot of potential opportunities for either reducing expenditures or new revenues, and you'll see those as we go along. So, as I mentioned, our budget is balanced. Our salaries and benefits are overstated. I'm sure you've heard others talk about budgeting lapse. Lapse is kind of a term used to describe the fact that we are very rarely fully employed. But I think we also have not potentially accounted for the full impact of not being fully employed by the fact that, at least in the teacher realm, we have to cover substitutes.
Yeah.
We have to have a teacher in front of the class. And so even though we may have a lapse on the operational side of, this is the teacher budget, we've been over expending on the substitute side and the class coverage side. And so we in finance are going to be much tighter in analyzing that and working with Mr. Raymer and his team to make sure that we have properly covered all of that. So you'll see hopefully a lot more analytics coming out of our team and some corrections as we need to make them going through the year.
The other thing is that, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think
Yeah.
everybody may not know this, but our numbers for recruitment and retention this year are incredible.
Yes.
So one of the problems we have is that we have like that lapse. Normally, we had vacant
Yes.
positions that we were not filling, but now
Yes.
it's like when we say we need 100 and something teachers at a location, there's literally 130, there's not two or
Right.
three vacancies that we're collecting cash on. So that, good job for us, but
Right.
less money on the lapse. So
Right.
I think the last report I got was 29 teacher vacancies.
It's less than that now.
Which that was over,
It was 29 last week.
Last week, right.
This week was 55.
oh, all right.
Hey, I'm sharing the.
All right, well, thanks for the transparency. Now I got to change my talking point.
the normal 250 when I was
Correct. 3 years ago,
Yes.
we opened with 156 vacancies.
And I know they've made some adjustments through the years, but over the last several years, we've also negotiated with the union where we're splitting like if we split
Correct.
a class because that position didn't get hired, then
Right.
that's not lapse anymore because we're splitting that teacher's salary between the 2 or 3 teachers that take those students, or 4, or however many it may be. So that's not really lapse realized at that point, except for maybe benefits. There's a little tiny bit, but the bulk of it is not going to lapse for those types of situations too.
Exactly. So, great job on the recruitment and retention side, but there's a financial impact to being successful in that arena.
Right.
So anyway, we're going to be looking at this pretty closely and monitoring it very closely as the fiscal year moves on. This is basically what your agenda will be on July 28th. It's a very prescribed process. You've all have been through it before. It'll be some very perfunctory presentations, and basically the board approves the millage, the budget, and the superintendent actions, which are the transmittal of the various things to the property appraiser and the tax collector. And then we announce the millage rate, and the amount that the rate is in excess of the rolled back rate. So this is what you'll see in the presentation in next week. Basically, our proposed millage rate is 6.3020. The required local effort, which is the number we got back from the state on Friday, is 3.054. The rolled back rate is 6.22. That's based on the increase in the property values. And so our tentative budget exceeds the rolled back rate by 1.32%. And we'll have to make those announcements next Tuesday. But these are the final numbers that you will see.
Before you leave that slide, just for the public's benefit, you mentioned the required local effort, the 3.0540 is part of the difference between what the rollback rate is and what we'll actually be levying. The state tells us what the required local effort is. We don't set that. So there are other government organizations that can set the millage rates. We can't. This is exactly what we have to charge.
So it's considered a tax increase, but we're not the ones responsible for increasing it.
Correct, and the rate is actually decreasing, but because property values in Brevard are increasing, even though it's a decrease in overall rate, you're still paying more in taxes.
Right,
But
because the
we only
value.
receive it on
except that
new
you're-
construction.
Except that you're not, I mean, I've literally gone to random famous people in the county, looked up their tax rolls and seen that, and done my own too, that for, I could look at my own house, except for the year that we passed the millage, right? That my own tax bill has stayed within $100 of the same amount
Yeah.
for all 12 years that I've been in my house. So people talk about other taxes are going up, going up, going up. Well, no, if you look at it, actually, my tax bill literally has been within $100, sometimes down, sometimes up, because the property values go up, but the tax rates go down, and the goal of the state is to keep everybody's the same.
It's only new construction that we
Right,
receive.
new
the
constru-
rent
if you
extra
move,
credit.
and
New
you-
purchases.
Right,
Right.
right, if you move, it's
Right.
different, but if you stay in the same place, your taxes are pretty much gonna be the same just about every single year.
Yeah, and this slide pretty much shows that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the green is the voted millage, but you can see the tax rate has gone down.
Yeah, so the actual tax rate is, when I explain this slide to people, is, that's the red numbers at the top. Without the voter-approved property tax, 1 mil, the rate has been steadily decreasing over time. And, even with the 1 mil at 6.302, you got to go all the way back to 2018 to see a similar tax rate.
Yep.
So the tax rates have been decreasing, except for what we asked the voters to have.
Yep.
Okay, and I think we'll formally adopt the budget on September 9th, and we should have a lot more details settled by then. So there's a lot of things that are still in play right now, but when we get to September 9th, we should be in pretty good shape. And next steps, we've got property sales, working on the budget. One thing I do want to ask is, both from the board and from our district leadership, is just kind of a pause on changes in position control and pause on changes in new programs and new things, because we are literally trying to see where we are. And so I would ask if you would give us a little bit of time to just kind of see where we are, so that you all and we can make decisions about, if you want to add this, we need to subtract over here. And it's
No new stuff.
It is complicated because we have different funding sources that can do different things.
Right.
But if we could just get a short break, it would be very helpful to allow us to give you good information about where we are as a starting point.
Minus the changes in the alternative program that we just discussed this morning.
Yes,
As long as we're keeping all
Well, those
projects.
weren't,
Those were basically budget neutral.
I was gonna say that was budget neutral, so that didn't cost any more.
Okay. And then I am doing some, what I hope to be fairly minor adjustments to the sales surtax plan that I showed you a few months ago, just because our capital funds, I believe that over about a 3 to 4 year period, our strain on capital from operating is going to be mitigated. We just need to kind of settle where we are last year, this year, and probably one more year. And then I think we'll be back to normal. But anyway, I don't want to neglect things like air conditioning at the expense of other things that potentially can wait. So I'll be looking at the surtax plan and getting you a final version potentially in August. And then other than that, I just want to say thank you. My budget team is pretty incredible. That's literally it, those 6 folks, and they have been working very, very hard to
I'm just glad she went back to including animals on her
Yes.
presentation.
I'm so glad for my team, and I look up and there's this
That
picture.
big old smile.
Is that in our house or in our schools? Like,
Yeah.
great.
And they have been working evenings, weekends, Fridays to bring you all this information, and I just appreciate them so much. But I also have to give a shout out to the rest of the finance team and the leadership team. Literally everyone has been helping to bring you all of this information, and I realize it's a work in progress and it's not perfect, but the whole team is working hard to make sure that we are doing the right things for our schools. And then a quick shout out to our facilities team, because they've been carrying the ball for me a lot. But I also want to thank them because, for example, Richard Vogt on our maintenance team, he did a very deep dive into all of our maintenance expenditures and compared them very specifically to the statute regarding capital, and he found us probably $1 million and change.
That's worth doing, yeah.
Like, he spent hours and very, very
great.
detailed analysis that we are literally transmitting to our auditor. And so our facilities team has been super helpful. Some of the folks in my office are helping put together the books and the documents and all of that. So just have a really good team here at the district, and I'm very grateful to be part of it. So thank you.
That's awesome. Dr. Rendell?
Mr. Chair, yeah, so there's been some chatter out there about we don't have a CFO. And we actually do have a CFO. Her name's Sue Hand. And I just really want to thank Sue for all of her tireless efforts. She mentioned several times the phrase putting in place budget monitoring protocols. I think it's actually on 2 slides. And she has taken this organizational approach to the work in finance that was not there. And so we're going to, as I think it's 2 or 3 times in the slide, she talked about continually monitoring the budget, the spending, expenditures, revenues, and so on. I feel like we're in a much better place because of her work and her direction. And the team has responded. You know, it's been a really great thing to see how much work has come out of, you know, positive work has come out of that department, but really because she's asking the right questions. You know, we're better off than we were before. And her role is not long-term. Like, she's not going to be doing this double duty, so to speak, long-term. This was our solution when we were presented with this dilemma a few months ago. You know, so we're going to get through this budget cycle, and then we'll look at the situation and maybe hire a CFO or an assistant CFO that reports to Sue, that kind of thing. But, you know, I saw some chatter out there about we don't have a CFO, what are we doing? You know, it's budget season. We have a CFO, and we're actually being prepared very well. We're facing the same funding challenges that other districts around the state are facing. We did close a school last year. Orange County closed 6 or 7. Other districts are closing and doing things like that. We are all cutting our expenses. We are doing everything we can to keep everything at the school-based level that we can. You know, we don't want to impact the schoolhouse, the classroom. You know, we did a 7% reduction in district departments, you know, continually pruning, looking for ways to save money, but we are in good shape, you know, and we have a CFO, and we're moving right along, and, you know, we'll present a budget next week for you to approve. It's a tentative budget. It's the budget as of now, and we will adjust it throughout the year.
Mr. Chair, if I could, just got one quick question. I meant to catch your rat before you turned it over to Dr. Rendell, but I totally agree with what you said, and I wanted to point out that Sue's department single-handedly manages, all right, before this addition to her role, one of the biggest chunks of the budget anyway. So it's not like she's not used to managing that part, and probably made finance, you know, thankful for the way that, you know, it got handed to them. So I totally agree with that, and I think she's going to do an amazing job. And to your point of what you said, I want to reiterate that we've heard some through the year that we're not talking about the reduction of role. We're not talking about. You guys are talking about. You've been talking about. You made the adjustments when you put out the directive to the district people here in the building, reduce your budgets by 7%. Of course, it was misunderstood, but like that was because we were adjusting to lower enrollment in ways that we could. When we made the decision, unpopular as it may have been, to close Cape View,
it was because we're trying to be fiscally responsible with the resources that we have. It's not fiscally responsible to keep a school that is continually shrinking because the population is continually shrinking to keep it open. So, I know people criticize, and my skin's thick, heart's still soft mostly. But that idea of being criticized for not being fiscally responsible, but then criticized for closing a school, you can't have it both ways. But I mean, we're trying to make the hard decisions, and I know this board is going to continue to have some hard decisions in certain areas to make. But I think that you guys have been on it, and if we hadn't made those cuts mid-year, which you directed, and the cabinet then put in place, we could have ended this school year. It's already looking a little scary, in a much worse place.
Yeah.
So I think those are the right moves to make. The one thing I wanted to ask about, and I know this last year was our first year of taking the PEP scholarships on a broader scale with our schools. I know it's such a tiny part of our budget, but it might increase. I would anticipate that it's going to increase. I don't know how that affects six-day count, but when we get into the six-day count conversations with schools, I don't know how they count as FTE. Most of the time they're coming in and just doing a couple classes, but I know talking to Dr. Mayer, some of them are coming in and taking like a full load of classes. They're just using their scholarships to do it. That we make sure that whatever mechanisms are in place to do those counts before we take resources away from schools, that those numbers are included in. Like I said, it's probably a small thing and it won't matter at all, but I just want us to always be mindful of that as I anticipate the PEP scholarship population growing and that funding source increasing.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Campbell. That's an excellent point, because I think one of the things we need to do as a district, we think about the business of education differently. And so, it's not necessarily just full-time enrollment. It is the scholarship students or folks who want to take a course or two courses or whatever. We can market that differently, and from where I'm sitting, I think that's an opportunity for us, and that we can potentially bring in more use of our schools through that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because we do offer some great things. So I think that
Absolutely.
I think we should figure out, while it's small, how to account for it, plan for it, budget for it, measure it, et cetera. So it's easy to do now. It'll be much harder if it gets bigger.
Right.
So thank you.
Dr. Riddell, anything else? Everybody else, good?
No, can I just say one thing real fast to Sue's team? Sorry, I don't want to get away from this, but I really appreciate you. I've said this multiple times because I'm like, there's not a single person I have ever heard say a bad word about you. And so it gives me sense of peace because I do hear, the chatter in the community, you don't have a CFO. And I'm like, we have the most competent person that I know that is leading this department. And so I have the utmost faith in you, but I also want to make sure that you don't, I'm going, oh my gosh, I know you're probably working 15-hour days right now because you're wearing so many different hats. And so if the board should choose in the future to look towards hiring a CFO, that is not at all against you whatsoever. That is 100% because we want to protect you and keep you here for as long as we possibly can and not burn you out. But your team and everybody that's pulling double duty, so thank you to everybody there. And I know that we have the right people in the right places and we're doing the right work. And so I just want to say thank you so much for all that you do. That's all. Sorry, just wanted to say that.
I'm sorry. I've met a lot of CFOs across the state, and they're not very good quality compared to you. And it's not just because of the decision-making that you have in the financial infrastructure of our school district. It's your workflow. And I think that when somebody is successful in setting up systems and the way workflow works, sets up a successful system in general. There's not a single person in here that would say that you don't have the best asset in that area. You have the best attributes to build those workflows and those systems inside this school district. And that's where everybody loves you, because you take in input, you come up with a solution everybody buys into. This whole thing about CFO online, the people that are saying it, I watch it and I'm like, those are the same people that praise Sue and say how great you are. And then on the other side, try to use it as a political tip. So I just ain't got no time for it. Didn't mean to I wasn't actually going to talk about it, but wanted to give you the full strength in what I believe in you. So with that, I think we're going to move on to Mr. Gibbs's evaluation, and he has two options here. Do you want to take the floor, Mr. Gibbs? You want to go over on the hot spot on the other side, or are you good there?
I think these are the changes the board already kind of approved. There was just one issue. Option 1 still has the item under 4.3 that deals with the press. In option 1, I removed that and put something
Yeah.
else in its place. And then there was a discussion on both options have 3.2, where it's an essential team member, I believe, of the superintendent's team. I didn't know how the board intended on grading that, if it's coming from the superintendent to fill in or what, just some clarity on that item as far as procedurally.
So if you guys notice, under
Yeah.
section standard 4, section 2, or option 2, there's 2 lines, 4.3 and 4.5, that are added in. Option 1 has removed that. That is, he is effective in dealing with the press. And then the other one is he provides new school board members training. Both, I don't know if they're pertinent to the actual school district on a regular. I think those are just duties that he would do anyway. So option 1, that's the difference between the two, and then he's also asking clarification on 3.2. Did I say that correctly,
Yep.
Mr. Gibbs? All right, so with that, I guess the two things that are on here, let me just ask this 30,000-foot view question. Is everybody okay with what's on here? Or are you going to attempt to add to it as we're here, just as a curiosity?
I'm okay with what's on.
We're all okay with what's on here?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The only thing I'd like clarification on is for standard 3.2, what Paul just mentioned about being a vital member of the superintendent's executive leadership team. He's the school board attorney. It just seems like that's a bit of a contradiction.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
a-
think that, unless we have to have a minimum number of standards that we have to rate them on, I like option 1, but I would remove 3.2 from it altogether.
I don't know. I mean, definitely option 1, I think the press and the
Yeah.
new board member training, because it's only relevant every couple of years.
I just thought it was funny if we put it in there that we'd have them go talk to the press. It'd be kind of fun.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
no.
He's like, that's not my job description.
The 3.2, what we have had in years past, we haven't done it in a while, we've had cabinet.
Weigh in.
And I didn't know, just some clarity on how that, I think, for the board, more
Yeah.
than anything. It's fine if you want to keep it in there. I just didn't know.
And I hear what you're saying, Mr. Thomas, but the fact is that Paul does sit on cabinet
Yeah.
meetings. And he looks after our interests because let's just say, and cabinet doesn't do this, but let's say somebody gets a wild hair and comes up with a crazy scheme. He's sitting in those cabinet meetings when we're not there going, well, the board might have something to say about that. Board policy says this. So he's looking after our interests in the cabinet meeting, not in a spy kind of way, but in a helpful kind of way. If we leave it in there, definitely though, this is, I see it because I see
Yeah.
him participating in things that cabinet does. But if we would it would make sense if we're going to keep 3.2 in there that we get some kind of anonymous collated survey from the cabinet on. But I don't know if we can.
I don't know how you would do that. What if you just gave the superintendent the authority to give the score for that field? I mean, would that work?
Dr. Rendell, do you guys ever do any evaluations of Paul?
We do not.
Even if it's
years.
voluntary or something like that? I know that we used to receive here's how great the attorney is from our cabinet members, right? And I think that was great. That was good input.
We actually gave him the tool, not this tool.
Right.
Yeah.
But do you have any thoughts here? Do you want to have your team evaluate him from a 30,000-foot view? Because he does do a lot of work for you guys.
So I will back up Mrs. Campbell's comment. She's a valuable member of cabinet because we'll be discussing a new idea, a policy change or this or that, and you'll chime in and say, well, that would be a violation of policy or that's against the law. I mean, not often. but-
So it's not just us, he does that too. Oh, man.
We'd like to hear that.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes, sir.
Just make a suggestion, and I'm not looking to make a big deal about this. I think it's a little bit of a contradiction because unless I misunderstand how it's set up, you pick your team, but you don't pick the city, the school board attorney. He's our representative.
Right.
So if we were going to be very clear, you might want to say something to the effect of, and I defer to the school board attorney for the legalese, but he is a vital representative of the school board with the superintendent's executive leadership team, something along those lines. That way we can judge him, we can rate him. It's not, and we're not asking a third party to do it since it's the evaluation's coming from us. And he is a representative of us on the superintendent's leadership team. He's just not part of the selected cabinet by the superintendent. So that's just my suggestion.
Did you write that down? Okay. Of course he did.
I'm good with that. That would give us the authority to make the decision on what the score is there.
Yeah.
All right. You okay with that? Mr. Trent? All right, everybody agrees. All right,
But can
are
we
gonna keep-
clarify that we're not going to then do a whole cabinet survey because we need to get this moving? for
Correct, we
him, This year. But-
Understood, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then are you guys okay with making him not go in front of the press? and
Yeah,
do
of
your
course
school
we're
board?
okay with it.
What?
You do enough of that for all of us, Mr. Susan. You're good, so.
Can we remove
Right
some
after this
other
meeting,
people
actually.
from talking to the press? I think option one with the
Yes.
added verbiage on 3.2.
For 3.2.
that Mr. Thomas just suggested.
And then, Mr. Gibbs, are you okay with all these? I mean, none of them give you heartburn?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay.
It's 90% done. We're pulling numbers and budget numbers to complete the self-evaluation, so you guys will have that shortly.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Time
All right.
frame, are we talking about doing that? Because I know we've got to start doing yours pretty soon, but time frame,
Yeah.
do we need to schedule some extra time?
Once I submit mine, you guys can
That's what I
schedule yours
thought.
whenever you want.
Okay.
I thought when he
It'll be good to
submits
go, whatever
his,
you
then
guys
we'll
need.
start.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Dr. Rendell, you got anything?
I do, Mr. Chair. So today's work session was not originally on the calendar.
Yep.
We added this because we thought we might need to share information regarding the budget, that kind of thing. So we covered a lot of stuff today that would have been on next week's work session. We only have one topic on next week's work session, so we're going to cancel next week's work session and put that agenda item on the work session August 11th.
Yeah.
So we will not have a work session next week. We will just have the business meeting at 5:30 PM.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good with
Yeah.
that.
Not coming?
On a completely unrelated note,
Uh-oh, here it comes.
I know Lena sent out the calendar invites for those September consortium days, and I know we don't, I looked at the deadline to reserve the hotel and is August 17th. So if that's not already on the August 11th workshop to decide which one of us is going to attend that in Miami, those at least one or two of the days, everybody needs to be thinking about that because August 17th, which is just going to be 5 days, Lena's got to have time to make those reservations and to pay and everything. So last
if
year
any
we
of
didn't
us
have
know.
anybody there. I mean, Janet was there, but she can't talk. She was just there to report. So we need somebody, I feel like, there.
Yeah, the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards legislative platform, both federal and state, is on the agenda for the 11th.
Yeah. So when we come to the 11th, if everybody can kind of look at your calendars and know, I mean, we can have more than one of us go, but we need to have at least one of us go.
Yeah, we'll be prepared to make at least 2 reservations.
Okay.
And you have to get those travels if it's over $500 approved prior to the travel, so.
It's gonna cost
It'll
more
need
than
to be on that
$500.
agenda.
Probably it costs
Right,
more
so
than
we'll
$500.
have 2 board
Stay
meetings
for the
between August 11th and
Is it just
it's
one night?
September 16th,
We'll have
17th,
one.
and 19th, so we should be
We'll
good.
have one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But don't we have one at the end of August?
Well, we do, but,
That's the only one, I think.
And September, the budget meeting.
Of September 9th, yep.
Yeah, we have,
okay, we have 2.
yeah, yeah.
These are all things we can work out. All right, everybody good? Dr. Rendell, you good with that?
Yes, sir.
All right, are we good?
All right.
We're done.